Welcome to Season 7 of True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. Real talk with those who pledge to keep us safe with grit, sacrifice and determination. Let's get on with the show. This episode of True Blue Conversations is proudly brought to you by Loudon Private Wealth, the team trusted by professionals, veterans and families across Australia to build real long-term financial security. If you want to take control of your finances, protect your future and build real generational wealth, Loudon Private Wealth are the people you want in your corner. They don't do gimmicks, they don't do hype, just smart strategy and honest advice, coupled with real-world experience. Check out the links in the description to contact Warren and the team via loudonpw.com.au or 02 8313 0418. Now let's get back to the show. This episode of True Blue Conversations was brought to you by Dead Reckoning Rum, creating individual rum releases commemorating the diggers lost in Afghanistan, proudly supporting veterans, donating 50% of all their profits to veterans organisations around Australia. Look up Dead Reckoning Rum, buy some bottles, connect via Instagram and Facebook and give them your support. Now, let's get back to the show.
G'day, welcome back to True Blue. Today I'm coming to you live from Newcastle and I've got a very special guest on. This guest had a distinguished career in the Australian Defence Force and also as a Victorian police officer, and he had multiple deployments around the world, serving in the Special Forces in the 2nd Commando Regiment, and then went down the path of the SOG in the Victorian Police. And it is an absolute honour and privilege to have him come up from Melbourne and join us up here in Newcastle. And Adam Smith, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Mate, it's a privilege, mate. We've been setting this up for a while, and mate, it's great to have you up. So thank you for coming up to Newcastle, and I've come down from Port Macquarie and we've made this work for schedules. And mate, before we get into your career, let's go back to a young Adam and talk me through life growing up as a young fella.
Yeah, you might not think it, but I was a cheeky blonde-headed kid.
I'm the same, mate.
Beautiful blonde hair, which is unfortunately no longer with me. But yeah, I was a cheeky kid, and I grew up in the northeastern suburbs of Melbourne. I have a family, so I have two sisters and mum and dad, and yeah, we grew up sort of in the Alpine North area, Greensboro area, in the northeastern suburbs of Melbourne. And yeah, I can't really, I was a handful, and yeah, it was academically at school I probably didn't perform as well, but I excelled in other areas, and my strengths are being a people person and being, having an emotional intelligence and I guess I wasn't the best in the classroom, but and I was probably a bit of a handful for the teachers, but yeah, I love sports and I loved outdoors and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, my grandparents also had a farm up in the Strathbogie Ranges, and my outlet was every school holidays, every long weekend, I was always up at the farm and just loving the outdoors. So it's not surprising, the career that I had and the path that I chose being, predominantly outside and in the outdoors. So, but yeah, I was, you'd have to ask some of my old teachers. And
There seems to be a running theme here with most veterans and first responders that I have on, mate, that the report card read, if applied themselves, can achieve something or is not going to amount to much in life. And so I'm guessing that was the same for you?
100%, easily distracted. And yeah, a lot of teachers actually sort of lost hope or gave up on me. And I'll share a story with you that, I haven't really shared that often with people, but in primary school, in grade 1, I believe it was, I used to go to school and have my mouth masking taped up. So I had masking tape across my mouth if I ever spoke. And yeah, one day, this went on for a while, and I was coming home with sort of like a rash on my lips, and my mum was just like, what's going on with your lips? And I said, oh yeah, at school I have my mouth taped up, when I talk. And she's just like, what the hell,
Yeah.
So that finished, but there was no real punishment or anything like that for the teacher. It was just like, oh yeah, she won't do it again,
Yeah.
So in I was at a young age being silenced or trying to be silenced or pushed down a path that that I was a square being put in I tried to being fit in a round circle, like a round
so
slot.
Square peg trying to fit in a round hole.
Yeah, and so the schooling system wasn't for me. And now I get to look back at that, and I don't really dwell on it as a negative thing. I look back at it as learnings, and I've got 2 young kids now, and I would do the absolute world. I would do anything for them, and just like my mum and dad did for me. And now I look at them and look at the schooling path for them, and what can we do creatively, what what works, what doesn't, and it's my wife and I's main goal in life is just supporting our 2 children and getting them the best possible childhoods they can have.
And because you're growing up late 80s, early 90s, so it's a different time to what it is in 2026, where the world has changed from when you and I went to school and when we were growing up. And because I remember myself, like you played sport, you built cubby houses, you built dirt jumps, you were out till the street lights were on. That was when you came home.
Yeah, that's me.
That was we were similar. That was our childhood. As today, kids go, oh, I'm catching up with friends, and you go, oh, but you're not leaving the house. Oh no, we're having a LAN party online. It's like, what?
Yeah.
It's just different times.
Oh, it is, yeah. And we have to adjust to that as well with those times. But we lucky for my wife and I that our kids just love being outdoors as well, and they love watching a movie here and there, but. We certainly encourage imaginative play and the outdoors and stuff like that as well. So it's a big part of their childhoods as well. So
absolutely. And do you have any family members that served in the ADF or first responder space, or were you the first?
So I'll go back further. My mum's dad was in the Air Force for a number of years, and I believe he served in Papua New Guinea for a short stint of time, but then, and that's where they retired and moved to the Strathbogie Ranges on a farm up there. But the other first responder is my dad, that he served 39 years in the Victorian Police Force.
Yeah, right.
And it's an incredible stint of community service. So
absolutely.
Yeah, he was always that, always that policeman dad, very, what you can think, very quiet, very unassuming when he spoke. People listened, but he's an incredible man. He served Victoria incredibly well, and all our family's super proud of him as well. And like we'll probably get to later, but my mum was the glue that held all that together. So hats off to her as well.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And it's 38 years, mate, as a police officer. Like, I just finished a podcast yesterday of a police officer that did 14 years, and what he saw in those 14 years, I can only imagine what your dad saw in 38 years. So, hat off to him, mate. And tough policing back when he, first started, and then going right through to when he finished. And you, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, would end up joining the Victorian Police and following the footsteps.
Correct.
So you know what it's like, and it's all our first responders, mate, and myself being one as well. It's a hard slog in both being a veteran or a first responder. So hats off to your dad. And mate, do you remember where you were on 9/11, a day that changed the world, and obviously it changed the trajectory of your life? And what do you remember of that day?
I remember waking up listening to the radio. My alarm in the morning to get up for school was the radio. So that went off, and I was sort of listening. It was sort of background noise. I got up ready for school. On the bus, there was sort of slight sort of murmurs of what had happened, and then you got to school, and there was a group of us, maybe about 4 or 5 of us, that were really intrigued by what had happened. And so the rest of the school everything was running just as normal, but me and this group of 4 or 5 guys were just like, hang on, like this is not normal. What is going on here? Everybody's pretending like this is just sort of normal.
Just crack on with normal life.
Yeah, crack on with normal life. So we actually grabbed a portable TV and dragged it into one of the woodwork or metalwork rooms, and we watched it live on TV, or watching what was happening on the TV. And yeah, we were all sort of just in shock of what was happening. But I had no idea that was going to be a pivotal point in my life as well.
Yes, and I know it changed the world and it's never been the same since. And you look at, well, as you said, mate, it was a pivotal moment for you and many others who served in the army or in any of the military. It was a game changer. And you finished school, and then what are you doing in that period before you actually joined the military?
Yeah, so through high school as well, the teachers all pretty much gave up on me as well, except for one, my outdoor education teacher, and he had a lot of faith in me, trusted me, and gave me a lot of hope. Sort of took me under his wing, and so took me on like outdoor education camps and all that kind of stuff. And I just loved the outdoors. Loved the abseiling, rock climbing, kayaking, all that kind of stuff. Anything outdoors, I absolutely loved it. So I think it came around like year 11. You did the sort of like those career interviews, and what was that other thing called? Work experience. So I did work. My school was in Melbourne sort of suburbs, and for work experience, where everyone goes off and does, to be a dentist or, a trade, some trade, or work in the shops, or, work in their parents' business or something. I went and worked on a dairy farm, and it was just so uncommon that was even a thing. So yeah, and I thought that was incredible. I didn't want to be a dairy farmer, but I just wanted to get out on the farm for a couple of weeks for work experience, and I knew that I didn't want to do a trade because I didn't want to be pigeonholed into one trade for the rest of my life. So come year 11, 12, my mum, showed me a survey in the ADF on the ADF website, and it was to fill out, the job survey. So you put in all your details, the things that you like and dislike, and it spits out a number of jobs that would be suited to you. And they were an Air Force Defence Guard, a rifleman, and commandos. So I was just like, yep, I'm going to be a commando. And so I started all the testing and the psych testing, aptitude testing, fitness testing, and all that kind of stuff. And I went in for the interview, and I was about 65 kilos, sopping wet, braces, tips in my hair. And they were just like, mate, how about we use riflemen or infantry as a stepping stone before you head off to commandos, hey mate? And I was just like, I would have just been nodding and been like, yeah, no worries. So yeah, that was what I did before. I filled out all that. I left school about 3/4 of the way, halfway through year 12, and went and worked on a farm with a family friend as a stock and station agent, where I would muster cattle, sheep, get cattle and sheep ready for the sales. I would work in the shearing sheds and all that kind of stuff. So I was back on the farm, back up to Strathbogie, where, it's like a second home to me. And yeah, I waited up there until I got my enlistment date in, January
2005. 2005, wow. Mate. And so you start that process. So back then, the internet is starting. So
it's the old dial-up internet.
If someone pulled the phone off you, you're like, what are you doing? You've just
Mum called me into the room where the big computer was, and said, check this out.
So you join up. So, like the process back then, like you didn't go into recruiters, or did you?
Yeah, went into recruiting in Melbourne.
Yep.
And did all the testing and all that kind of stuff and the interviews there. So that was all done in Melbourne. Yeah.
And did you feel back then that because you'd gone and got that bit of life experience on the farm, did that sort of help you when you got to Kapooka? Because you've actually got a bit of life experience. You've been around hardened men on the farm that you went to Kapooka. Because I know I've had so many veterans on that they've just gone straight to Kapooka and been like, oh my God, this is like, wow, what are we doing here? But because you'd gone onto the farm, did you feel, I'm squared away with this?
Yes and no. So being around country people, I was able to converse with like all ages, people from all over the place, and I love people. I love talking to people, and everyone was friendly up there. So the communication piece, yes, 100%. But when I went to Kampuka, I wasn't ready to be like yelled at and screamed at and like belittled. Yeah. And so I was just like, these people are horrible. Like I take everyone, I have face value and speak to people, and, if they're a decent person, then, I'm a decent person back to them. So, and it wasn't the case. It was very one way at Kampuka. So yeah, I used to get yelled at a fair bit, and I got sort of straightened up. That one time I had my hands in my pockets, that kind of thing, and I still had this cheeky smile, and the instructors used to just say that they hated people like me.
And you talk about the beasting that you caught, like, that I know from what I've heard from newer veterans now is it's gone. Like
my understanding is if you get yelled at, you can like pull out a yellow card and just be like, yep, that's enough.
What is with that?
Yeah.
I say this tongue in cheek. You're joining the military. What do you think it is? Like a holiday camp? Like you're joining to, serve your country and protect and, what do you think it is? Like a holiday camp? Oh no, that's it. Yellow card. I'm out.
Yeah.
Come on. So what did you? Was it the 12 weeks for when you went through?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. And was there talk?
12 or 6 weeks. Yeah.
Was there talk of? Like, at Kampuka, was there talk of deployments at that point, or was it more?
Not really. It was more just, get it done, get the recruiting. There was no real feeling of going to war or anything like that. It was just more I was just joining the army. After Kampuka, it was just the box to tick to then head off to IATs, which is in Singleton, which is the infantry training. And I was just more looking forward to that. There was no real going to war or deployment sort of talk at that stage.
Did you have good secos down there?
I did, yeah, I did. Yeah.
So they set you up pretty well, and then, mate, you go to Singleton. I've heard a lot about Singleton. So you get away from the cooks and all, like, the engineers, and this is, as you say, you go to Singleton this is infantry tactics. You're learning. What was that like? That would have been, and if you thought Kampuka was like, well, what was Singo like?
Yeah, it was super war-y. Like, if I look back at it now, it wasn't, but at the time, it was incredible. You were joining the army as an infantry soldier, frontline soldier. You felt at the top of your game, and you were blowing things up, shooting guns, like a child's dream. That was. That I was living that, and that's what it felt like. Yeah, it was very surreal being an infantry soldier, and serving your country, and it felt like I was doing something really, really purposeful.
And did you get a preference of where you wanted to go?
Yeah, so I think a couple of weeks out of marching out, they said either Townsville or Sydney, and because I lived in Melbourne. Sydney, I thought Sydney was just another city, and I wanted to sort of change things up a little bit and go to Queensland. I had no idea where Townsville was. I thought Queensland was the Gold Coast and Brisbane, and I had no idea that there was a whole other
North Queensland.
Queensland. So I'm like, yep, I'm off to Brisbane. Thinking that, and realising that I was right up the top of Australia.
Yeah, right. Just going back, did you bring the family down to see you march out?
Family always came. Same with Kampuka. My family came. Also, the Cole Broughton, that was the stock and station agent, the family friend that I was working with in Strathbogie, he came up as well with the family, himself and Jane. And for Singleton, my family came up again for that as well. So
proud moment. And then, mate, you get to 2RAR, and mate, what was it like getting to 2RAR? And because the Melbourne heat is very different to Townsville.
Yep.
How is it? Acclimatisation to North Queensland.
Yeah. So the guys that went up there, we marched into Delta Company, and there there was this thing called there was like this company challenge that was happening at the time, and I think it was called the Red Bayonet. And whether it was run yearly or, I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, there was mill skills and all these skill testing and shooting, nav and all this kind of testing, and there was a 40 clicker to kick it all off, and the instructors down in Singo were like, yeah, well done for going to Townsville. You're posted to Townsville. It's all approved. Enjoy the 40 clicker. And I'm like, what the hell is a 40 clicker? What clicker? What is that? What is that word?
Yeah.
It meant 40 kilometres, pack march. So yeah, to kick that, we flew up there, marched into Delta Company, and a number of them were already off doing this Red Bayonet. And yeah, we went into a 40 clicker out near the cane field somewhere, and did a heap of shooting and skills, and we had to like pull apart foreign weapons like AK-47s and things like that. And I was looking at it going, I've got no idea how to pull this thing apart. Like so, yeah, it was a big rude awakening that you only during your training you can only sort of do a small amount of stuff, and the real job and the real training starts when you get to be your battalion or your regiment and things like that.
And looking back now with the career that you went on to have in SF, do you feel that guy was right to say, hey, mate, probably go and do a couple of years in battalion and then come and see, like, come and have a crack at commandos? Like, looking back now?
Yeah. I have thought about that a couple of times. Well, and probably I was a bit young. I was 18 years old. So, yep, I do agree that was a good stepping stone. But at the same time, I would have loved to have gone DRS and been trained up and just been commandos the whole time. But, looking back at it now, I've had no regrets. There was a few sort of sliding doors moments of, went once at 2 RAR when I decided to put my application in for 4 RAR commandos at the time. And, without those sequence of events, I might not have ever done that. So, I everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
And, I look back at it and be like, I was a kid. Like, you look at 18-year-olds these days and you're just like, that is like a child.
Yeah.
And, the recruiting officer looking at me across the desk, in probably braces, tips in my gel in my hair, and probably wearing clothes that didn't fit me, like a shirt that I just bought from Kmart or something like that. And so I don't blame him.
So you go on and do that 40 clicker, mate, and then in the following year, so 2006, you actually get your first deployment overseas to Timor. And
correct.
What were you doing over there, and how long were you over there for?
Yeah, so we got recalled back to the battalion. They said, go and call your parents, or go and call your loved ones, tell them you're not going to be speaking to them for a while. You're getting deployed. And so we got all our kit together, called the parents, said, I'm not sure when I'm going to call you next. It was pretty crazy. And we got all our kit and flew into Dili. Charlie Company actually got disbanded and got spread out over the other companies. So I joined Charlie Company, and I was I think they called it like a number one rifleman, or it was I was just a team member in the team, in the platoon, and we were doing sort of stability operations in and around Dili, sort of breaking up crowds, just keeping sort of the peace, and working our absolute ring off, patrolling, foot patrols, APC patrols. It was a crazy 5 or so months.
Yeah, right. And what was it like? I'm guessing that being in Townsville, the climate is very similar to being over in Timor. How was that?
Yeah, very warm, humid, the same sort of temperature. Yeah, so it was climatized pretty well. So it was. But being out there, being on deployment, having real bullets, rocket launchers, grenades, cashed up with patrol money.
Yeah,
and it was pretty surreal, pretty cool feeling,
And did you, with that, like, because you're 19 at that stage?
Yep,
So
19 years old.
Mate, 19, cashed up, like, you must have felt on top of the world coming back to Australia and the growth that you would have had as a young man. And did you invest your money or did you spend it?
No, I actually kept all my money.
Yeah, right. You'd be one of the few.
Yeah,
mate,
one of the few that I actually kept all my money. Yeah. Since being a kid, I think it was like 13 and 9 months is like the age that you're allowed to sort of legally work. And even before that, I used to lie about my age up in the Strathbogie Ranges, and I used to work on vineyards and all that kind of stuff, lying about my age. You know, I'd rock up on a motorbike and, you know, with my little Smoko esky with all my lunch in it and stuff, and they'd be like, oh, obviously he's old enough to be here. And, yeah, so I have worked jobs my whole entire sort of teenage years. I used to work at a cafe. I used to work at a pizza shop, paper run. So, yeah, I was always pretty savvy with my money and just kept all that deployment money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so you come back from your first deployment, mate, so rewarding deployment, and then you come back and you do your sub-2 for corporal.
Correct.
And that's pretty, mate, it's a good stepping stone to go join in 05, and then you've come back doing your sub-2 for corporal, and then you deploy back to East Timor again, mate, for your second trip in 07-08. And is it similar to your 06 trip, or is it a different trip, this second trip?
Yeah, very different trip. So I did sub-2 for corporal, which is a promotion course. Usually you do sub-1 for corporal first and then sub-2 for corporal. I just had to do sub-2 for corporal first and then back-to-back, then sub-1 for corporal. And then I got promoted straight after that to Lance Corporal. And I was sent to Signals Platoon, which is a support company within the battalion, and I was a deck commander. So, and then shortly after that was promoted to full corporal, and I was in charge of Bravo Company's communications. So all of their radios, all the company headquarters radios, and I deployed with Bravo Company to East Timor in 2007.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And is it at that point when you're over there that, like you said earlier on the podcast, that you wanted to be a commando? Was that when the idea really, you went, okay, I'm over here, I'm actually going to put my nom in for 4RR and go on selection? Yeah,
correct. So when all the support courses came up, so all the guys and my mates that I joined with around the same time were all off doing support courses, you know, whether it was mortars, snipers, recon, and there's pioneers as well, and then there was SIG course. So I got stabbed to do the SIG course, and then I was pushed down that path of being in Signals Platoon. And, you know, I was a kid, I was hunting as a young kid, shooting, and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, I was a really, not talking myself up, but I was a good shot, and, you know, I just knew that I had a lot of skill and fieldcraft skills. I had a lot more to provide than being in Signal Platoon, and shout out to Sig Platoon. But when I saw my friends in Recon Platoon or Snipers, I'm like, that is meant to be me. That's where I'm meant to be. This isn't my path. You know, I was being pushed down a path that I didn't want to be on, and that's what motivated me to say, like, this is not my journey. I'm putting my application in for 4R Commando.
And so you do that, mate. You put your app in to go to for at that time, and now Second Commando Regiment, renamed in 2009. And how did you mentally and physically prepare to go on selection?
I don't think I was really that physically or mentally prepared, to be honest. I just was just like, yeah, I'm going to be a commando. I had no idea. I had no friends there. I didn't know anyone that had done it, so I was going in completely blind. I had read a couple of magazines and a couple of the training programs, so I sort of stuck to that. But yeah, I had absolutely no idea what to expect, and yeah, I was again a rude shock. But I knew that I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to give up, and I had that, I guess, resilience and tenacity about myself that I was just going to give it a go, and that was my decision. You know, there was no plan B.
And that's sometimes, mate, I think, looking back now, you can sort of, you get so much advice from people. It can, like, going in blind is actually, it can be a blessing in disguise, because you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know, and you just do it. And so you turn up, mate. You do your barrier to then go on selection. And
correct.
How many started selection, mate, and how many finished? And what was the toughest part for you?
I believe there was around 110 or 108 first sort of participants, and back then it went for 6 weeks. It was a long selection, and my understanding we finished with about 20.
Wow,
yeah.
So high attrition rate. Yeah, right. And what for you was the toughest part looking back?
The toughest part was the sleep deprivation, the food deprivation, and probably that demarc phase where you're deprived of food, sleep, and any kind of comforts for a number of days. I think it was 2-3 days. So and that was probably the hardest part, but we got through it. There was a lot of times where I wasn't at the back. I wasn't at the front, but I was sort of like
in the middle.
Yeah, a little bit further back from the middle. I would say in between the middle and the last. So I was just trying to just get it done. And there was some long days in there. Like the PT sessions were crazy. You'd be sleeping in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden you're back out on the parade ground doing this thing called a hollow square. So if a square's got 4 sides to it, if you take one of those sides out, that was the hollow square. And some nights we would be standing there for absolute hours and hours, just not talking and just sort of standing there until someone sort of dropped, and then that was potentially the signal for us to then to go and get a couple of hours sleep. So that was pretty rough. There wasn't really a moment where it was the hardest, but the whole thing was horribly hard.
And at that point, when you're on selection, Afghanistan is starting to ramp up. So you guys are knowing that if we get through this and then go on to the Rio and it's successful, we're going to be going to war.
We were constantly reminded that we were going to war. They were training us for war. There was no guessing about that. It was the reason you are doing this. We were actually. I don't like leopard crawling, so being on the ground and leopard crawling, that's probably the hardest thing for me. And burpees.
Yeah.
I will never do. I'm never going to do a voluntary burpee again in my life. Right. So there was just so many burpees and the leopard crawling. So, but the reason we were told that the reason we're doing this is because all the stupid Taliban and insurgents are dead. Only the smart ones are still alive, and that's who we're going to fight. So, there was no ifs or buts that if we passed selection and passed our reinforcement cycle, we were going to the companies and going to war. Yep.
And in 2008, when you were on selection, Jason Marks is killed.
Yep.
Were you on selection when that happened?
I believe so, but it was all sort of kept. We didn't have any outside information or contact with the outside world. So it was only sort of just little bits of information that was coming through from potentially from the instructors.
Yeah, right. So you finish selection, mate, then you go on Rio, and spoken to a number of guys from the regiment that they always say that there was certain parts that they struggled with.
Yep.
How did you go with Rio?
Yeah, I loved the reinforcement cycle. You're with a core group of mates now. You've passed selection together. We would now. You got weekends off, so you got actually that little bit of freedom. So we would go into Coogee or Newcastle or wherever it was at the time, and just, let our hair out. And not so much me, but So it was a really, really cool bonding experience with the guys on the reinforcement cycle, and we were again training up to do the basics of how to be a commando, or the basic qualifications to be a commando. And again, we were reminded that once you get to the regiment, that's where the real learnings sort of happen. So they were just giving us the bare basics and now it's changed a lot. Now, it was giving us the bare basics back then, but now the product of a commando at the end of the reinforcement cycle amazing, polished soldier compared to what it was when I went through. But probably the hardest part for me was ACQB, so Advanced Close Quarter Combat. It's where we do our domestic counter-terrorism, room floor combat. We do a lot of shooting, and I'm left-handed, but I'm right eye dominant.
Yeah, right.
So I shoot the pistol left-handed, and I shoot my rifle right-handed. So when we would line up and do these drills, dry drills, up, shoot, stoppage, and just constantly perfecting that skill set of proficiency in weapon handling. And everyone was doing the same thing. They were either right-handed, right-hand pistol, or left-handed, left-hand pistol. So the left-handers would go up one side, and the right-handers would be on the other side, and I would just be sort of in the middle because I was right-handed rifle, left-handed, and we're doing like changeover drills and all this kind of stuff. And if something doesn't look right to an instructor, they can pick it out instantly. And I was just a target. So I had to make sure that, I was squeaky clean. I knew that the eyes were always on me because I looked different. I had the pistol on the left. And so, yeah, I was watched like an absolute hawk. So, you would go into rooms, and by stages, when you would go into rooms, you would then, we had to go through into the room on safe, see the target, go to instant, engage the target, back to safe, and then you scan the room. Sort of that was like steps and stages. Eventually, you would go in on instant, shoot the threat, and then just before scanning, you would apply safe and then start moving off. But this all had to be done in stages. So at any stage, if your rifle was on instant at the wrong time or safe at the wrong time, you would get safetied and written up like warnings and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I knew that I was watched like a hawk. So that was probably the most pressure I'd been on throughout the whole reinforcement cycle.
And I've spoken to a number of guys that have said that is the stress. Like, it's stressful. Like you are constantly, as you're saying, being assessed, and it is pressure.
Yep.
But they want that because they want that finished product at the end, and so that I think most guys that I've had on say ACQB was their that was their struggle.
But I absolutely loved it at the same time. So I could hyper focus on clearing that stronghold with all the threats. Saving the lives of the hostages. I was focused only on that, and I thrive in that kind of environment and being sort of calm in the chaos. And that was my jam. I absolutely loved that, but I knew that I was being watched like an absolute hawk because I was different.
So did you lose any? You lose a few guys off the Rio, and so you finally get through Rio, mate. And then what's the feeling when you're presented your Sherwood Green beret? And what company do you march into? Yeah,
so we had a small ceremony at Singleton, I believe, and it wasn't really that much. It wasn't a big song and dance kind of thing like they do now. It was just, here's your beret, welcome to the regiment, and
now the learning starts.
Yeah, that's right. Go to the companies. Well, now they do it a whole lot better. To my understanding, you get plaques and certificates, and it's actually a big deal now. Back then, it's like, here, mate.
Yeah, good on you, mate. There you go. So,
so they do it a lot better now, and we marched into Charlie. Majority of us marched into Charlie Company, which predominantly was the Tactical Assault Group East, so the domestic counter-terrorism company that predominantly looked after that for many, many years previous to that. So, but now they were rotating the tag responsibilities throughout each company as a rotation. So Charlie Company rotated off tag and into sort of green roles, and we deployed not long after getting posted to the company.
So you post into Charlie, mate, and then you deploy in 2009 for your first Afghanistan trip. This is the real deal now. Like, East Timor's been stepping stones, and now you're in Afghanistan. Talk me through this first trip.
Yeah, I look back at it now, and I was so privileged to have a team commander, a mentor, and a good friend in Brett Wood. Brett was my team commander for that first deployment. So I learnt things from him that, you know, I still carry to this day. And like his resilience and pursuit for excellence was incredible. Like, you know, just good enough wasn't enough, you know. And we rehearsed and trained like crazy, you know, to absolutely perfect everything about our team skills and movement and things like that. So that was an incredible seat to be on for him as my mentor and team commander. So that was an incredible trip. I absolutely loved that. And yet I was pinching myself constantly, like walking around some of the villages and things like that, absolutely pinching myself going, I'm here. I'm a commando. I'm on wartime operations. And, yeah, it was very, very surreal feeling. And, yeah, I loved it.
So you mentioned Brett Wood, and I've had Craig Hamburger on the podcast, episode 100. He was Brett's 2IC in 2006, and he talks about it was the greatest highlight of his military career, is serving alongside Brett. And we're going to talk about the tragedy that happened in 2011 when you lost Brett later on in the podcast. But what he said was just Brett was the ultimate professional, and I've heard it throughout that you know, he was just a phenomenal soldier, phenomenal leader. That gives you a bit of confidence going into your first Afghan trip. And do you remember the first contact that you got into when you were over there in country in 2009? Yeah,
I do. Yeah, so at that stage we were doing a lot of vehicle operations. And that's when the IED threat was starting to you know, be more prominent. But what we had on our side was we were going into areas that weren't planned or pre-positioned. You know, we had a FOB in Tarankout, but we didn't have a small outstation where we would only be able to conduct patrols around that area. So we had surprise on our side, unless we were going through passes that, you know, there was only one way in, one way out, and if the insurgents had enough time, they would put some IEDs in the ground, and our engineers would find them or blow them, and we'd sort of just continue on. But vehicle ops were still a thing in 2009. We would go on long vehicle operations as well, and we'd park up in the hills and the mountains, and then we'd sort of walk down into the valley, conduct a clearance, and then walk back out to the vehicles, and then move along to the next village and do that. That was rinse and repeat, and that was nighttime operations as well. So we'd sleep during the day and conduct night operations at night, and the first contact was I was a number 2 scout. There was a scout in front of me, and we were sort of offset, sort of walking down into the valley, into the village, and in the distance we heard like a pop and a bit of a smoke, like a dust cloud, and I just in slow-mo watched this RPG just fly up between myself and the number 1 scout, and as we sort of looked, we just like joined eyes, and then it just initiated and blew up in the hill behind us. So it was only, I would say, like 10, 15 metres away. It was just like this RPG just slowly travelling up the valley and in between us. It was pretty
surreal moment. Surreal,
yeah.
This is
that I'll never forget.
And then do you just go into
correct? So it went kinetic from there. We were still out in the desert making the break into the village, and we just manoeuvred team by team into the green belt, as we called it, and then started conducting operations from there. But that, I think, was the next day, was had a close call. Our team got ambushed, and I ended up with some rounds between both sides of my right leg through my pants, and Brett ended up with a number of bullet holes in his camelback on his back. So it was pretty.
So it was pretty intense.
Yeah, correct.
And talk me through that, mate, because the mindset to go outside the wire, like, you're risking your life. You're a commando. This is what you've absolutely trained for, and it's grueling, the reinforcement cycle. But because you'd rehearsed, was it just second nature to, all right, the drills, like, bang, let's go, we're in the fight. Like, you're not thinking of the thought of I could die here is not entering your head. It's just go to do your work.
Yep, it's autopilot. It is you've trained so much that once the first shots ring out, you're just on autopilot. And yeah, you just work as a team. It's an incredible thing because you're it's like training to be a butcher or a teacher or something like that for your whole life. And you're reading how to be a butcher in a book, and then that one day you actually then get the beast, and you can start carving it up, and creating beautiful, delicious Scotch fillets. You know what I mean? So you're doing the job for real, and you never actually know what it's going to be like when the first shots ring out. If you are going to crumble, if you are going to perform, so having that confidence of being in your first contact. And having firing shots and shots coming back at you, and knowing that you can still perform at the absolute peak and best, it's a pretty cool thing to know that you don't crumble. Yeah.
So that first contact happens, and then what's happening for the rest of the trip? Is like highly kinetic? This is where it's really kinetic. This trip.
Yeah, we did a number of vehicle operations. Like I said, our team got ambushed. There was a few little contacts here and there. We actually went to Helmand a couple of times. So Helmand, for your listeners, is like a Taliban insurgent stronghold. So we flew into there for 24 hours, 48 hours, and we just were completely surrounded, and we just had the best day ever. Just dropping bombs, shooting insurgents, and at the end of the day. So we used to listen to all their communications and stuff like that as well, and we'd have interpreters listening to their communications. And on the radio, as we were leaving, they mentioned that we were welcome back anytime. So they said, yep, really good fight and welcome back anytime. So there was like this gentleman's agreement that it was a good day on the tools for both sides.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And for the civilian listener, so. When Adam talks about Helmand, that was their heartland. That was their they were fanatical fighters in Helmand, weren't they? Like Uruzgan you'd sort of had pushed out the bubble now, and then going into Helmand was that you knew you were in for a gunfight down in Helmand.
Yeah. So there was going to Helmand. It was awesome. That was a good. What do you call it? It was a box to tick. Once you've been there, it's like It's the real deal.
It's kinetic. Did you guys drive down there, or did you just fly it?
We flew, yeah.
So choppers were starting to come in at that point?
Yeah, any time we sort of went down there, we flew, yeah.
So, because in your later rotations, you would do a lot of fighting in Helmand with the DEA and that. So, but at that stage, you're just pushing out a little bit further. And then how long was that first trip for?
I think it was 5 months, 4.5, 5 months. So those smaller trips, maybe it was not enough for Rockall. Yeah, so 6 months I think ticked over that you're allowed to go back to Australia for a week or something like that. But yeah, we never were able to do that. They were always shorter trips.
Highly kinetic, which is probably looking back now, mate. 4.5, 5 months is because you're heightened. You're out on missions every day.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing to, just have those shorter rotations.
That's
and
right.
Then you come back from your first trip. You didn't lose anyone on that trip.
No.
So that's always a win. And
100%.
You come back, and what's happening? Do you go on leave, or what's happening when you get back in 2010?
Yeah, 2010 was sort of a bit of a refit year. I did the 3-month Pashto course to learn the local language. One thing that was really missing about that trip was being able to communicate and converse with the community, like the locals. I absolutely loved sitting down with them, drinking chai tea and naan bread, and they would bring out a goat, and they'd have all these random dips, and we'd be sitting around on like beautiful rugs, and I absolutely loved that. And I would be looking at these old farmers and these old guys that they would sort of they were so hospitable, like. Their hospitality was just amazing, and any time that we stopped around near their house or compound, they would give us chai tea, and just it was amazing. I loved the people, but I would just smile at them, read their body language. They would sort of smile at me, and we would sort of bit of sign language, you know, to try and communicate. And that was the missing piece for me. So I made it my priority to be able to talk the language next time that I went over there. Yeah.
So
that was 2010.
So you do that course, mate, and this is where two commandos starting to lose guys. So you have the chopper crash in 2010. 3 of the boys tragically killed in that. And how does that affect the regiment? Like you know that you're going over to war.
Yep.
The chances are high that you're going to lose guys, but you know, a chopper crash to lose 3 guys in one and many more seriously injured.
Yep.
How did that affect the regiment?
Again, they were all really good blokes, and the injuries from that as well were horrific and last a lifetime. But everybody with the deaths and injuries over there, you can process them and make sense of them because we're going over there doing the job that we love. We're there for a reason. Nobody is forcing us to go over there. We loved that job. We loved being over there. And so when injuries and things like that did happen, yes, you dealt with them and you mourned and processed it. Then it was just we're on to the next mission. We're cracking on to the next thing, not dwelling on the past. And we were future focused. We were mission focused. So it was just, let's process that, and now let's get on with the task. So yeah, it hit the regiment hard, but at the same time, everyone knows the risks, and no one is forcing us to be over there.
And mate, it wouldn't be the last that, you know, on this next deployment that you go on in 2011, a really challenging trip for you, and we'll get into that day that Brett was killed, and then Todd, and then also Rowan.
Correct.
So this rotation was very different to your 2009 trip.
Yep.
It's more kinetic.
Yep.
The mission profile has changed. Talk me through this second rotation.
Yeah, so I was in Tango Platoon, Charlie Company, and these bunch of blokes and our attachments, so like our sniper attachments, mortars attachments, you know, our platoon attachments like medics and all that kind of stuff. It was an incredible bunch of guys. That Tango Platoon was, I would do anything for those guys still to this day. It was just an incredible bunch of war-fighting men, like warriors. And it was a privilege to serve alongside every single one of those guys. So, there was no hiding that we were going into war. It was during the exact same time, like during the fighting season, as they say. And, we were going into a kinetic environment. Brett Wood was our platoon commander. Brett Wood was our platoon sergeant. So he was promoted from the Team 1 to platoon sergeant. So it was, again, having him in the platoon was an incredible thing as well. So, like you said, the profile changed. We were now predominantly doing helo operations, so getting helicopters into areas and bringing the fight to the insurgents. We had the relationship now with DEA, which is a counter narcotics, and they had a whole nother line of effort. So we would have our line of effort supporting the coalition, and then their line of effort was the counter narcotics operations. So we could bounce from either, whichever was happening at the time, we could just bounce to that. And my team commander at the time, he couldn't sit still. So every single mission that there was, we were on it. And there was not really that much downtime for our team. If there was an opportunity to get outside the wire, we were out there. And it was a really crazy trip, and I learned a lot from it. There's a lot of lessons there. It was just incredible kinetic trip.
And you mentioned that, that you're going to the helo-based operations now, and Is it about that time too where night operations start to cease, and this is where the changeover is to daylight raids?
Correct. And partner force ratios.
Yeah, and that changes the game, doesn't it? Like, because you guys own the night, and same as the SAS own the night with your fighting capabilities at night, and it puts the risk up, and you guys accept that risk, and I'm guessing you weren't too happy about it. And, like, was there pushback to go, hey, why are we doing this? Like,
night clearances had sort of dried up, but for important targets it would still happen, but it was just not, clearing villages through the night, that had sort of ceased. But missions still went on for priority targets at night, and we would always be inserted, not always, but for big missions like into Helmand or other big missions, we would be still inserted during the period of darkness, and we would get to our compound of interest and on daylight. So we would still insert and infill to the target during the period of darkness at night, but then first light we would then conduct the raid or the operation.
Yeah, right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And then, mate, a day that you'll never forget. Brett Wood, DSM MG, he's killed. Talk me through that day and that mission that you were out on.
Yeah, so the mission it was a disruption operation into a key leadership stronghold or area of Helmand Province, and it was there as a smaller piece of a larger operation to distract some other coalitions to move through the area in the coming days. And we inserted by night in Chinook helicopters. We also had a platoon drive there in like a vehicle operation as sort of our support and like a QRF, whilst we were actually in the stronghold fortifying a defensive position within the Greenbelt. So the plan was to be there for 48 hours, and we landed around 2 a.m. By 2:30, we were a couple of kilometres from our landing point from the helos into the Greenbelt. My understanding was a kilometre or two, and so during the dark we would sort of walk in. They wouldn't have any idea where we sort of landed out in the desert, and we would just walk in, secure a few compounds, and then start conducting operations from there, like as a bit of a stronghold. But that didn't go to plan, because by 2:30, as we were sort of making our way into the Greenbelt, we came under like heavy machine gun and like rocket fire. So accurate that, myself and my team commander in like this little ditch, no cover at all, rounds flying over our heads, sort of looking at each other, sort of smiling, going, what the hell is going on? It was a coordinated attack on us. Whether they had the feeling that we were coming, or they pre-planned something like that, but it was so accurate at night that it was almost laughable. It was sort of, we were looking at each other sort of smiling. It's like, how are they so accurate? How do they know where we are? How can they see us? So we eventually made the break-in and secured Bazaar and a number of compounds by 4:30 a.m. And we'd gone through so many rounds that we already needed to be resupped.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty full on. So we ended up having a resupp, an airdrop come in, an emergency airdrop to drop us off more ammunition that afternoon, that night of the 22nd. Yeah. So that full day of the 22nd was full day of fighting. We were under constant small arms, machine gun and rocket fire for 48 hours.
Yeah,
continuous. Yeah.
So intense fighting, and
it didn't stop.
Yeah,
and
right.
Back and forth as well. So, and once we set up our sort of position, our defensive position, we would then send clearing patrols out to bring the fight to the enemy in like positions, with machine gun positions that we were getting fired upon that day, on the 22nd. Then the night of the 22nd as well, we were conducting operations, clearing patrols and clearing strongholds from enemy positions as well. The next morning, my team did a patrol out to the northern side. So the morning of the 23rd of May, our team went and did a clearing patrol to the north. It was our task to sort of look after or cover the northern side of the defensive position, the platoon defensive position. And we were getting shot at the day before from this one position a lot. So that morning we went out and did a clearing patrol to a compound just to our north. We ended up, there was a number of insurgents in there that were shooting at us through like keyholes through the compound wall, like these huge mud brick walls. You can imagine like 7-8 foot high walls of just, so it was like half a metre thick of mud, you know. And so they had these, it was beautiful, it was incredible cover, and they would mark out these or dig out these sort of keyholes about the size of your hand or your size of your fist, and they would shoot through those little holes. So we come across the compound, and the two insurgents were still in there. We could hear them talking, and yeah, we blew in the door with the grenade launcher attachment on our 2IC's M4. So he fired at the big metal door to get in there a number of times, and it actually set off an IED that was placed at the doorstep of the door, which I coincidentally walked over twice.
Wow.
Once to cover down the street, and then walked back over this way. We all sort of took cover while the 2IC fired the 40mm grenade launcher at the door, and yeah, it blew up the IED at the door, which was sort of waiting for us, and which they set there just in case. And we threw grenades over the walls and all that kind of stuff. And from that, our team commander and team medic was fragged. So they had like just small shrapnel wounds, I think one to the back and one to the arm, and they were medevaced out back to Tarankout later on that morning. So yeah, we cleared that compound. We found out that later those two guys are deceased on the radio, which is good.
Always good when the Taliban are killed, mate.
Yeah, that's right. So they escaped out of a mouse hole at the back of the compound. They had an exit strategy, but yeah, there was a lot of claret and blood trails to that hole in the wall that they got out of. So yeah, they eventually just bled out, my understanding. And yeah, we made our way back to the platoon, and the team commander and team medic were evac'd out, helicoptered out, and we continued on like operations, holding the northern side. The platoon was still conducting clearance operations around the bazaar, and that afternoon, Team 4 went out with Brett accompanying them. They got into a bit of a skirmish with the insurgents, and yeah, next thing we know, we hear this. From my point of view, I just hear this incredible large explosion, and when you hear an explosion like that, there's a slight pause after it, because you're just waiting. You're waiting for the radio communications to come through to say like, "Yep, that was us, all good," or unfortunately, what we heard was multiple friendly wounded in action. And the next thing, yeah, will stay with me forever, is multiple limbs missing, and
take your time, mate.
Yeah, hearing those words, you just go into, again, autopilot. You get your kit, and we just started running towards the explosion. And Rowan Robinson and the other engineers were clearing a path to our path to the casualty site, to where the team had sort of pulled themselves into a compound and sort of defended that. And I remember running past the engineers, sort of minesweeping, just going straight through, not even worrying about my own safety, or same with the other guys. Running into the room, or running into the house, compound, and on my left-hand side, seeing, a soldier there missing multiple limbs, And I first thought was because I didn't recognise the person. I was just like, oh, thank God, like I don't know them. And then started rattling through my head, like I didn't think that we had. It's just like, hang on, I know everyone in this platoon, but I'm like, oh, maybe it's an American. So I had multicams on. I didn't know if we had any American attachments, and I then knelt down next to the soldier, and I was starting the doc was there by this stage, seeing if anyone was O positive blood type. So we're going to start giving blood to them. The Team 4 guys were, fixing up tourniquets, putting tourniquets on, readjusting, or putting more tourniquets on the amputated limbs. And I just sort of did a double take while I was kneeling there, getting ready to give blood of the exposed shoulder of the guy that was laying there. And I'm like, oh, that tattoo looks familiar. That's Brett's tattoo. And yeah, just sat there with him for a while. He's still alive, fighting, and everyone was fighting to keep him alive as well. But eventually succumbed to his injuries, and Tango 1-1, the Todd Langley declared Brett deceased over the radio. Tango Bravo, KIA.
Take your time there, Ads, because I've heard so much about him, and I know how it affected Bergs back here in Australia. You're on the ground with him. You're his 2IC. Mate, that would have broken you. It would have broken anyone. Regardless whether it was Brett, you've lost a teammate, but the calibre of human and the leader that he was, mate. And I'm getting emotional because I'm seeing you get emotional. How do you stay mission focused?
You turn your focus to doing it for Brett. Yeah, Brett was our platoon sergeant. He was the pillar of what a commando, was. And so it was you're almost just in shock, but you knew that the mission still had to go on. We were completely surrounded by Taliban, IEDs on every path, entry and exit into that village now. The mission was then to get Brett back to Tarankout. So, we built a stretcher. And people just kick into action. People, going to autopilot, start troops to task. We got the stretcher organised. We got Brett's belongings. I picked up Brett's gun and carried that out. The guys carried, Brett back to the platoon headquarters, and then, from there, this was late afternoon by this stage, and it was coming over the net that how we were completely surrounded. That they had reinforcements from all over the place. That we were almost, they were going to wrap us up and take us all, and our extraction was booked in or scheduled for that evening, and we still had to get out of there. We still had to get back out into the desert to our pickup point. And we obviously had received some of the most accurate fire at night coming in that anybody's ever seen. And they know exactly where we are. They've planted IEDs in every exit, path, road, you name it, around us. They were tying all their positions in, tying all their gunner positions in. They had us locked in tight. And the crazy thing is, a dust storm came through.
Oh, no way.
And the guys were able to create a path out through, the fields, through the middle of the fields, and we were able to get out undetected, unscathed. And yeah, we carried, myself and a number of other dudes carried Brett out back to the extraction point.
That is a sheer bit of luck that a dust storm comes, because at that point, looking back now, are you thinking we all might not get out of this? Like we're like they had it that locked in, that are you guys thinking, how the hell are we going to get out of this where we are?
Yeah, yes and no. Like we knew that whatever happened, we were going to fight if we needed to fight our way out, we would do that. But it was the strategic planning of manoeuvring our way out of there so that we didn't use any paths or funnel points or anything like that. So yeah, that was the...
And to not lose any more life. Like you'd lost Brett, and the other two guys had been wounded before, so you get out, mate, and then you fly back to TK. That ram service would have been very, very hard on all of you.
Oh yeah. So myself and a number of other guys were the bearer parties for Brett's coffin. Escorted it out to we obviously conduct a ramp ceremony, a ceremony within the base, like a semi sort of funeral, and then we escort Brett by vehicle, SRV, out to the C-17, and he takes he flies back to Australia. Yeah,
and because you're still on mission, you guys. You didn't come home with him, or did you?
No.
No. So
so he gets escorted back to Australia. There was a state funeral that was organised for Brett back here in Sydney.
Yeah, it was massive.
Yeah.
You see the street. It was huge, and and I hate to say it, mate, that a fitting send off for a true warrior.
Yep.
You wish that it didn't happen, but it did. And for you, escorting him out to the Herc, did you just take a moment with him for that final goodbye before sending him off?
Yeah. So there was a number of days between organising him getting back to TK that we provide a vigil, so we actually stay with him he's in a cold room, sort of getting preserved. During that period of time, there's a number of days that go by, and we're with him 24/7. There's a commando there at the door with him. During that time, we were actually able to go in and spend a bit of time with Brett as well, and say our goodbyes and things like that as well. So yeah, it was a good experience being able to do that. But yeah, being able to spend time with him and during that period of time was good as well. Yeah.
So you lose Brett, he goes back to Australia. You're still cracking on with missions.
Yeah.
That would have, sent shockwaves through the company, but also the regiment.
Yep.
It's not finished yet.
No.
You go back out on mission, and then only a couple of weeks after you lose Brett, you then lose Rowan Robinson, who you mentioned was the pathfinder to get to Brett.
Yep.
And then you've just mentioned Todd Langley, which we're going to get to a little bit down the track. Mate, talk me through that day that you lose Rowan.
Yeah, so I'll just wind it back just slightly.
Of course, yeah.
A couple of days after Brett passed, the platoon commander was walking through the lines, and he needed a volunteer or two volunteers to go out on a DEA mission. And I've never been so mentally and physically drained from what had just happened, and I without even a thought, volunteered for the mission. And that in myself, it was like a salute to Brett. It was a benchmark, a point in time in my life that I now reflect back on every single day when I decide to try something hard or do something hard. I look back at the hardest things I've done, and that day being able to instantly just put my hand up without a hesitation to say, yep, I volunteer for that job, to get back out there, to prove to myself that I can still conduct myself the way that I can, and solidify that I'm all good. And yeah, that's what I did. So yeah, and then obviously the mission went fine. It was just a VCP with the DEA to check some vehicles in a nearby village and come back, and it was fine. But yeah, 2 weeks later, we were conducting some more counter-narcotic gigs in the Helmand province, and unfortunately, yeah, Rowan was shot and killed on one of those missions. Yeah,
and yeah, go back and you hear Rowan was shot in the throat. So virtually, and I know Dr. Dan Pronk talks about what he did to try and help Rowan that day, and go back and listen to, there's other podcasts. I haven't actually had Dan on, but go back and listen to other podcasts, and he talks about that day, and talks about also in his book when Brett was killed. And mate, so Rowan is killed. You guys are just losing guys left, right and centre. And then, mate, you mentioned Todd Langley. He was there, and called it when Brett was killed.
Yep.
And then, unfortunately, he loses his life in July, and that same day, Heath Jemison is shot as well.
Yep.
Mate, we could have lost 2 blokes that day.
Yeah.
Heath is just so lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
Talk me through that day.
Yeah, so obviously Rowan was a warrior, did an incredible job that day. All the team guys that were on that hill that day did an incredible job. And yeah, to safely get him out without sort of getting any other injuries was, quite the feat as well. So that took place. I just can't speak any more highly of Rowan as a man, as a soldier, as somebody that looked after us, because we can't do our job. We couldn't do our job over there without the IRR, now SOA guys, as part of our teams, and they were integral to our teams, to getting us into the villages and out safely. So yeah, I can't speak any more highly of Rowan and his engineer friends. A couple of weeks, or it would have been a month later, I believe it was around the 4th of July, is when we went back into Helmand again. And yeah, it was a pre-dawn clearance, or sort of pre-dawn insertion, and then we would get into our strongholds, lock it down, whilst the DEA guys were destroying all the equipment, the heroin, opium, and all the drug paraphernalia. And yeah, we were in contact from further up from the village, and we had snipers up in Overwatch, and from behind them, I believe, or from the village behind where we were actually conducting operation, is where the insurgents started to sort of scale the mountain, and that's when they fired upon our sniper team and shot Jamo through the neck, which couldn't be done again if you even tried. The guys up there kept him alive, kept him going. Jamo did an incredible job, still trying to call in air and give their position, and yeah, to get them all off that hill unscathed, other than Jamo, was an incredible effort as well. So yeah, those guys are just awesome blokes, just warriors. And then the other team, Todd's team, was team 1, I believe it was. And yeah, then shortly after that, whilst that extraction was happening, it came over that Tango 1-1 has been KIA'd and on a roof. And yeah, so our team continued fighting. We were dislocated from them, continued fighting that afternoon, and come extraction time, yeah, we carried Todd out to the extraction point.
And because from what I understand, he was popping up to have a look, wasn't he, to try and put some direct fire in?
Yeah, correct.
And that's when he was killed.
Yeah.
and you just couldn't get to his body.
Not for a while.
Because there was just really intense fire on that rooftop, wasn't there?
Yeah, the guys had to pull him through a hole that they created through the roof. It's my understanding.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
Mate, that must, like, I've had Ian Langford on the podcast. He spoke so highly of Todd.
Yep.
I've had many other great guys from the regiment that have spoken so highly of Todd.
Yep.
And Langer spoke, he said that, you know, you lose two great sergeants in Brett and Todd.
Yep.
The experience that you lost in that and the capability of those two, like those two guys, mate, you guys must have thought far out. It's just like, and it was so quick. Like you had Brett, then Rowan, and then Todd, and almost lose Gemmo.
Yep.
It's like it was a shit rotation for you.
Yes, and it was a bit of a realisation for the family back home as well. Like, and if Brett and Todd, you know, Brett standing on an IED, Todd being shot, if it could happen to them, it was like it could happen to anyone. And that was kind of like the realisation for the family and loved ones back home. They're like, hang on. If this is happening to the guys at the peak of their careers, at the tip of the spear, then it could happen to absolute anyone. So that was you sort of had to work through that. Yeah.
And how are you and the rest of the company? You know, you've had some pretty heavy knocks. How are you guys travelling? And you get Todd back to the ramp service as well.
Yep.
How are you guys coping mentally at that point? Because I know you say you crack on with the mission.
Yep.
But Christ, it must have been bloody hard because you've had 3 in succession, quick, and guys that were great, all great blokes.
Yep.
Mate, I know you guys talk about the warrior culture, but that must have absolutely tested you to almost like that point of going, bloody hell, like, you know, like, talk me through that.
Yeah, there was never a time where you gave up or didn't want to go on operations, or because that was your job. Again, that was your bread and butter. You loved being there. You were able to process those deaths and injuries because we were over there doing that job. Loved. The risks, we knew the risks. It was easy to process it because it was on ops in Afghanistan. You know, it's tit for tat sort of. So yeah, the mission just went on, and it's hard to say, but things just, you know, we weren't going and doing sort of pointless jobs, but we were still very, very focused on the mission and getting everyone home safely. So, yeah, to be honest, those last few months was probably a bit of a blur, but yeah, it was probably in a bit of a survival mode. But yeah, nothing changed in our output. Yeah.
And that second rotation, kinetic, guys are lost. How long was that? Another 4.5 months deployment?
Correct.
Yeah. So, mate, you come back. You then, as I said, really kinetic trip, and then in 2012, mate. So after that, do you guys get a little bit of leave, and then so to reset, reorg, righto, mission focus, good to go.
Yep.
And then, mate, you rotate onto TAG in 2012.
Yep.
Was that because, you know, you'd lost Brett, you'd lost Todd? Was that a bit of a reorg in that period as well, going on to TAG?
Yeah, definitely. And having the counter-terrorism responsibility is another mindset as well. It's actually quite refreshing because the whole year is planned out, and you know what you're doing and when. We had a couple of other lines of effort as well. So that the start of that year, January, I believe it was, I actually went down and did a SOG climbing course, roping and climbing course.
Yeah, right.
Down in Melbourne with the SOG, and that's where I sort of started those relationships, and you know, obviously ended up going there later in my career. But I then, so one platoon was predominantly looking after domestic counterterrorism, and then a team would then be sent away. We had the responsibility of looking after generals and ministers and the PM, the Governor General, for when they went into the Middle East and into any sort of threat zones. We would look after their personal security.
And what was that like, mate? Because you do a number of PSD missions over there, and different role that you're not fighting, but there's a risk, there's a heightened risk being with these high profile VIPs.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the planning that went into looking after them, and did you enjoy those challenges that pop up?
I loved it. So my role with those PSDs was the personal, was the PSO, so that personal security officer. I was for the listeners, like the bodyguard. I was the person that was with the VIP all the time. So I actually got to build rapport. This is when my people skills was able to shine. I built relationships. I gained trust really quickly, and was able to make the VIPs feel really calm and safe from the instant that we started talking. So I was like their point of contact and personal security officer that was with them 24 hours a day.
Yeah, right. And in that, you're not. So are you in like a suit at that point? Or?
So whatever the VIP was usually sort of dressed in, I was sort of try to mimic that as much as possible.
Yeah, right.
So if it was a minister, then I'd be in suit as well. If it was a defence, I would be wearing whatever they were wearing. But it was so. That was just one piece of the team as well. So that the one person, me being the point of contact, but then there was this huge team around us as well that some overt and some that you couldn't see as well. So it was a whole machine working in the background to facilitate, whether it was administrative or tactically. There was a lot of pieces of the puzzle, and the guys we just loved it.
And so you're doing those missions, and then when you're back in country, are you're an assaulter in
back on tag. Yeah,
that would have been because you said at the start you were being scrutinised for shoot right, shoot left.
Yeah,
but this is where you get to hone and muscle memory and just drill after drill after drill.
Yeah,
and you said you loved it.
Yeah,
like, was that because I've had so many blokes on that say if you're not in combat, tag is where you want to be because the amount of rounds that you're, and day to day you're fit, you're doing so. And you said that you had your year marked out, and basically are your weeks marked out as well. Like we're at the kill house this day.
Exactly right.
We're high roping. We're doing all this sort of stuff. Yeah, right.
Exactly right. So it's all planned out. So you know exactly when you can book leave and all that kind of stuff as well, which is like you're never usually able to do. So.
And then in that same year, mate, you do a Pashto language course again.
Yeah.
Was that because you mentioned that you enjoyed that?
Yeah, that was in 2010.
Oh, right. Yep.
But like I sort of alluded to before, I just loved speaking the language. I loved being over there in Afghanistan, doing obviously my job, but I loved just the people were amazing, and I loved being able to converse with them and speak with them, sit with them. And
was that learning it here and then speaking it over there? Is the dialect? It's a little bit different, and was it hard to understand?
So they would import or recruit guys that could actually speak the local tongue.
Yeah, right.
With the same dialect, yeah.
So you love that, mate, and then so sort of a reset. You're in and out of doing your PSD missions. You're on tag, and then in 2013, mate, you deployed back for your third Afghanistan trip. This one is different again from when you were there in 2011. How had the mission profile changed from your 2011 trip to 2013?
Yep. So in previous years, we were so focused on getting out the door, conducting operations, bringing the fight to the enemy, and it was sort of less focused on building up the capacity for our partner force, our Afghani partner force. So the last deployment was really on building that capacity, building them up, training them up, and because that was the last SOTG and the deployment over there. So with those guys, so for us anyway. So yeah, it was just building up their skill sets and trying to get them to conduct independent operations.
And at that point, had Cam Baird been killed?
Yeah, so that was 2013, June 22nd.
Yep.
That was actually my wedding day.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and that happened, and I had all the boys at my wedding, which they obviously didn't tell me that had happened that night. I found out the next day. But yeah, that news was pretty rough as well to happen on my wedding day.
Yeah,
the guys sort of kept it from me, and yeah, I went on my honeymoon after the wedding to Japan, and yeah, 2 weeks later I deployed back to Afghan as a Team 2IC.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's a rough period, mate, of time. Like, you know, you lose a guy from the regiment, and then you're getting married, happy time, and then yeah, bang, 2 weeks later you're in country, and that, as you say, the mission, like you're building up the partner force in that last rotation. Looking back now, was it a good way to sort of end, like, of the 2011 trip, sort of a good way to end your time in Afghanistan, looking back now?
Yeah, because I was now in a leadership role, being able to like mentor, the guys in my team and other platoon members. So it all the experience that I'd built up, I was actually able to share and relay to the guys. Like, you could be the best shot in the regiment. You could have the best skills, best room floor combat, and just you could be the smartest bloke, know all the technical things about all the kit. But if you can't share that, if you can't, teach that, then you're useless. So I never claim to be the best at anything, but if I could pass on knowledge and value to the younger guys and some advice that I got as a young guy was, you've got to bring the people below you up to better than you. So if they can, that's the goal as a leader, bringing up everybody else and fast tracking them above you, because you want to make them better than you, because you've already gone through that experience, you've already gone through those challenges, and if you've got advice and tips for them and teachings, then you got to pass that on. If you don't, then you're no good.
Yeah, and mate, you had probably one of the greatest leaders to mentor you into that position in Brett Wood. So
and that followed on as well. That deployment in 2013 was the retrogression of, we withdrew from Tarankout, but during the lulls in the battle, or between the missions going out, the platoon commander, platoon sergeant, the senior team commanders were constantly running the junior leaders through training. And again, we weren't just sitting around, watching movies. We were sharpening our tools. They were trying to create some really, really good leaders. And I believe, that period of time really solidified Charlie Company to what it is, to what it was, that renowned company within the regiment, within the world. So we never settled for second best, and we were constantly sharpening our skills.
You weren't feet up on the desk going, no, we're just absolutely, mate. And mate, so you finish your third deployment, you come back, and then in 2014, is it a macro?
Macro.
Yeah, macro.
So mountain and cold weather. Yeah, of course, yeah.
In New Zealand, mate.
Yeah.
Was that a tough course?
So the macro course, it's a mountaineering course, and being a commando, you need to be able to operate and deploy into any environment. So we have SMEs, or subject matter experts, in every field or anywhere that you think a terrorist or an enemy could be. We need to have guys within the regiment that are skilled up in every single environment, every area. So there's a small select group of guys that are MACWO qualified, and we were running a course in New Zealand in June 2014. Unfortunately, whilst we were up there, we had a training accident and we lost Frankie Francis. So he passed away up on the Grand Plateau down a crevasse, and we conducted a rescue. We pulled him out of the crevasse, and he succumbed to his injuries, and that was a big hit as well. That was probably, that hit me the hardest because it wasn't overseas and it wasn't at war. It was on a training exercise. We were all loving being up there. The mood and the vibe was just amazing. And he was the team leader, for him to fall down a crevasse, us to conduct the rescue, pull him out of there. Yeah, obviously he was in a bad way, and that really, really shook me. I actually had to reach out to the regiment psych, and the next day after returning back to Australia, and reach out and say, look, something's not right. And I thought that I was broken. I thought that was it for me. My cup was full, as they say. And I spoke with the psych. I relayed the whole story, and it was just like this weight off my shoulders that it was the first time I told the story from A to B of what happened over there. And that was another learning for me, is that if somebody's been through a traumatic experience, the best thing that they can do is start to talk about it and get it off their chest, because your brain isn't making sense of that traumatic experience. And the more you tell that story, the more your brain will file it away and make sense of it, and you'll be able to process it and move on. And just by that little bit of information, I use that. Obviously it helped me, but if there's anyone else ever going through something traumatic, I can give them that analogy and say, look, mate, you're not broken. You've been through a traumatic experience. You just need to process it now. Start talking about it. Get it off your chest, and it's going to make you feel a hell of a lot better. Don't bottle it up.
And it's with the brain. It's like a computer. Eventually, it gets full and it can't cope. So it's like it needs to download, and as you're saying, download that trauma, and then process, and then get it out, and then your brain can then eventually go, okay, I've processed that now. I can then make sense of it and move forward.
Correct.
And the best you can. And it's I know it myself. Like it is, and it's cathartic when you get it out, because as you say, mate, if you keep bottling it up, eventually, like, you're going to explode.
I walked into that psych office thinking that, I've heard about this PTSD, and I've heard about, that, people, you get medically discharged for PTSD. And so I walked in there thinking that I had PTSD and I was broken, and how am I going to explain this? Is this going to be me am I going to feel like this forever? Like I let you know that I cried in public at a restaurant and with my wife at our favourite restaurant the night before, and I was just like, and I couldn't help it, and I was like, I thought that was going to be me every day, because you see it on the TV, and people talk about it, and I was going to be like this broken veteran that just cries in public all the time, and I was never going to be able to sleep, and all these kind of things, and I'm going to have to go on medication. And like I said, I walked into that psych office thinking that, and I walked out of there. He said everything's going to be okay. I just went through a traumatic experience, and I walked out of there just feeling on top of the world. And
and at that point too, because it's 2014, mental health, people coming forward, it wasn't spoken of like it is today.
Correct.
It's now, it's more accepted, and that stigma there's still a stigma, because I now work in that space. There's still a stigma, but we are getting better, and people are starting to accept, okay, if someone's not okay, well, let's help them. But let's help them get back. For you to come forward then, mate, I'm going to take my hat off. Well, I don't have a hat, but take my hat off to you, because especially at the regiment as well, it would have been a hard thing to go, actually, I need to go and actually get some help.
Yeah, and it was a big thing, because I remember being at the restaurant with my wife and just like crying and going, I need help. I can't. I actually need help. And I wished that more people did that. I wish that more people knew that they had those resources available to them, whether you're in defence, whether you're in emergency services, whether you're a civvy. There are phone numbers to call, and it's not a shame, but it's shit that people don't call and then take matters into their own hands, thinking that maybe that's the way that they were going to be forever. And it was a decision that I made to reach out for help, and I encourage anybody to do the exact same thing, because it was the best thing for me, best thing I ever did. If you don't have that, if you didn't have those, if you didn't know that you had those resources, I'm telling you now, they're out there.
And, mate, I advocate on almost every podcast that I do, and my own journey and my own struggles, that, 12 years ago this year, I was standing on the edge of that cliff, mate, and I was seconds away from ending my life. And I put my hand up, and it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do is go,
exactly,
this has got too big, I need help. And I'm now an advocate, mate, to say it's not weak to speak. Speaking up takes courage, but speaking up can save your life, and the light will come again. You will work through it. Obviously, not everyone can see that light and get to the end of that, and they don't get to the end of the darkness to the light. But for most people, if you do come forward and speak, you generally, after a couple of weeks, couple of months, you start, and then a couple of years, you start to get better, and you put you get tools, and you work. You can put tools in your toolkit to go, oh, I'm slipping again. All right, what do I need to do? Okay, maybe I do need to go and see the psych and say, hey, look, haven't been great, been in a bit of a lull, I need to get out. And mate, so I advocate for that all the time, and I'm glad you do as well. And it takes courage. So and I use that as a learning piece as well to pass on as much as I can, because I, like you see, brain before about the stigma side of things. How am I going to explain it to my team? How am I going to explain this to my company? All the things were just going through my head, and it was just a phone call and a sit down and chat, and it just it fixed everything. So you come back from, as you say, a training, and how many guys have we lost throughout the army? You look at over the years on training accidents, and so that happens. You're not, as you say, you're not at war, and you needed a bit of help with processing that traumatic incident. And in that same year, mate, you deploy to Europe, and without going into too much detail, you're part of the MH17. What are you doing here?
So I think it was the next day after Frankie's funeral, back at the regiment. It was my platoon commander was in his office. I walked past the office and sort of yelled out, "Hey, Smitty, are you able to escort some weapons to Europe in support of MH17 crash?" I'm like, "Yep, no worries." And then, within a week after Frankie had passed, I was on a C-17 headed for Europe in support of the MH17 crash. And what our task was there as a quick reaction force, to support the investigators that were actually at the crash site. So if anything was to happen, we could insert there and pull them out. And during all this period as well, whilst I was in New Zealand 2 weeks before that, my my wife was pregnant as well.
Yeah.
So my wife's pregnant. I go to New Zealand, like on a exercise which was meant to be amazing. MH17 crash happened. A week later, I'm in Europe for a month. That mission finished, and whilst we were over there, the commander came and said, "Congratulations, thanks very much for your work. It's glad we didn't need you, but get home as quick as you can and spend as much time with your loved ones because you're being redeployed." Yeah. So we got back home. We spent a week with our loved ones, and we deployed to the Middle East in support of the Iraqi government in the fight for ISIS.
So, mate, you deployed to Iraq, and are you thinking, awesome, back on the tools, here we go? But what happens in that deployment?
Yeah, so we originally were waiting on approvals to get into country from the Iraqi government. Once those approvals took place, we moved into 2 locations, one to Baghdad and the other out to Al Assad Air Base, and we set up a base there. There was that base, I believe, was housed like tens of thousands of American troops back in the day of the original Iraq War, and yeah, we were hanging out there. It was like an apocalypse. It was like a zombie apocalypse minus the zombies, and yeah, we just scavenged and hot-wired cars and just built a base, an Australian base there that we ended up calling Camp Wood in memory of Brett.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, that was like the Wild West. It was incredible. I absolutely loved that trip. And apart from that, yeah, ISIS was sending rockets into our base every day.
Yeah, right.
There wasn't really a day that went past that we weren't getting rocketed. So, yeah, we used to wake up to the sound of rockets coming in and exploding, not far from our living quarters.
Yeah, right. And were you thinking when you were over there, we're actually going to go out and we're actually going to be able to do some fighting? Or?
Yeah, so our primary job there was to train and advise the Iraqi police. I believe they were. Yeah, they're special forces. We were the guys that were injured from the battlefield, the front line. They would go back, get patched up, and then they would get sent to us. We'd train them up to somewhat, competency, and then they would then be sent back out onto the front line.
Were they? Because I know I'd spoken to a number of guys that in Afghanistan, the partnering, the training element, and were the Iraqi police more? Were they better to train, and they were more willing, that they wanted to train than being in Afghanistan? Yeah,
so it was more focused on maybe how do we do it better this time?
Yeah,
and let's support these guys and train them up so that they can conduct their own operations.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, mate, that happens. You get a deployment, as you say, you're supposed to only go to Europe, and then you get a deployment to Iraq. And how long was that one for? Was that a quick trip? Or?
So all up, it would have been, 4 months or so, 4 or 5 months. And I came back actually to Sydney, where Chelsea was pregnant. And, so
we'll talk about that. You become a father, mate. How has becoming a father changed your life?
Yeah, so I was obviously in Iraq, came back from Iraq 5 days before our son was born. And so I missed the whole pregnancy. So yeah, from being in New Zealand, losing Frankie, a week later, I was in Europe to support the MH17 crash, came back from there, I was back for a week, deployed to the Middle East, Iraq, came back 5 days before our son was born. Yeah, so let's just say my wife is a trooper. Yeah,
incredible human, mate.
Oh yeah, I'm nothing without her, and she is the single most important person to me. Obviously, she's given me 2 beautiful children, but yeah, without her, I wouldn't be anything that I am today. So, yeah.
And mate, they always say it, behind every great man is an angel. And
Yep.
Chelsea's that for you, mate. And
Yeah, and choosing a partner is the biggest investment you'll ever make. And my return on investment's been great.
And mate, I want to talk about that, because had you been with Chelsea throughout this whole period of
Yep.
when you're into Commando, so
Correct.
she's ridden the whole waves, the ups and downs of you being on deployment,
Yep.
you being away on training courses.
Yep.
Mate, they deserve medals. Like,
Oh, yeah.
what
Yep.
they go through.
Yeah.
You know, and I recently had Emma Donaldson on the podcast to talk from the wives and the
Oh, wow.
partners' perspective.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. It was so interesting because she had her own career in the military, served for 20 years, and supported Mark through 7 deployments.
Yep.
And then raising kids.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, they do it. It's like a single mother.
mate.
You know, it's... Yeah. They do an incredible job. And, yeah, like you said before, they deserve a medal. But, yeah, words can't describe the love and support that they give us to be able to do, you know, carry out our lifelong dream and be in the best job in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you come back, your son's born, mate, and like I know I speak to every dad that it's just the moment you become a father, your whole outlook and perspective of life changes.
Yep.
And then you, in 2016, mate, you're back on tag again.
Yep.
Another busy year on tag.
Yep.
And are you starting to move up the leadership ladder in the sense now, like you're...
Yeah, so for 2017, or so the 2014, sort of 15 Iraq trip, I was a deck commander, so I had my own team. I then went onto tag, moved into the senior 2IC role within the platoon, and then the year after, potentially looking at like a team commander position. But I was also earmarked to head back to Iraq in 2017 to the same mission set. So obviously now I've got like an 18-month-old child. I didn't want to ever put work first over my family. I used to, back when I was a young digger, I used to look at the guys that had families, and hats off to them. You know, they obviously do it, you know, the best that they can, but I didn't want to be that kind of dad, like the dad that was always away. So I decided Chelsea and I decided that we would separate from full-time army and, you know, put the motions in to move back to Victoria, use my connections to go to the SOG or do a lateral transfer to the SOG. And that happened in 2016, September 2016.
And just before you left the army, you do another macro course in Colorado.
Yeah, so
that would have been an exciting course.
Yeah, so I was in the States for 2 months, you know, skiing, you know, ice climbing, you know, conducting operations in extreme cold weather environments. Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. And
a bit different because you know the previous one you'd lost Frankie.
Correct.
This one went through without it was just a good course. Then you, as you said, you start the process to transition out of the defence, and you know, like, it's been a pretty hectic. You joined in 2005.
Yep.
And then you're 12 years?
Yep.
Yeah, 12 years of that's your life. Then you go and you do your lateral transfer into SOG. Do you actually still have to go to the academy and do all your time at the academy?
Yeah, so September, it was early September, maybe the first week of September, I received my letter of offer from Victoria Police and the SOG to put in that once I finish the academy, I'll be laterally transferred to the SOG without spending time in probation, or like out at a uniform station. like the beat.
Yeah, the general duties, yep.
So I received that. I took that into the office, and there was a enlistment date or a start date. I think it was around the 19th of September, which was like 10 days away. So I packed up our lives, sent everything down to Melbourne, and had 10 days off and started the academy, the police academy.
And you mentioned throughout the podcast that, being a scholar wasn't your forte.
Correct.
How did you find learning law and studying and being at the academy? That would have been a bit of a challenge too.
Yeah, so joining the police back in the day when I was in high school seemed daunting because you had to do exams and you had to learn law, and that English was not my strongest point. And I was just like, oh, well, I'll never be a policeman because you have to do exams and study and learn law. Like that seemed so far away from my interest base whatsoever. But when you've got a goal to join the SOG, when you've got that focus, everything else is just putting the pieces together. So yes, I had to do the law exams and had to study and do all that, but I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't interested in it and it didn't have an end point. So if someone was just to say to me, you've got to study law, and I'm like, well, why? It would be like needles in my eyes to try and study law and just find out about it. But there was a treasure at the end of the rainbow. There was something down there. So that's what kept me motivated, focused, and I actually enjoyed learning that aspect of law and the police academy. I really, really enjoyed it. Great bunch of people. Being in a training establishment again was, a lot of people, that was their first training establishment. So they were quite nervous about, exams or, physical activities that we needed to do and things like that. So I just slapped it all up. I loved it.
And
no stress.
Are you at the academy? Are you there with obviously young kids that are fresh out of school?
Yeah, fresh out of school, other backgrounds.
Did they know that you were in Special Forces, or?
Yeah, it didn't take long to share that. I don't think. Yeah. It was pretty hard to hide.
Yeah. And does your dad come to your march out? And
yeah,
I reckon he's seen you march out in the military, but joining the Blue family, he would have been immensely proud.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't believe. So at the march out parade, a member of the police or a member of the family, if they've served, they can actually come and give you your badge.
Oh, right.
So the police commissioner would usually give the badge to everybody, but as I'm up there collecting my badge, it was the assistant commissioner at the time, but I shook his hand, I stepped to the side, and my dad is the one that gave me my badge.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Mate, what a proud moment that, and something that you two have forever. Right?
Yeah, we've got photos of it, and I've got a plaque up on my wall. But yeah, that is pretty cool. Like to see the smile on his face and him being so proud of me was something, mate. Nothing short of amazing.
Oh, mate, I think I speak for most human beings. We try to make our parents proud of us in everything that we do. So, you're just following on a long tradition that, some don't. They they make their parents just, like embarrassed and, like, oh, God. But that's what we all try to do. We try to, as, kids, that's all you're mentored to make the right decisions in life.
Yeah.
That's what we're all about. And so, mate, you march out, proud day, and then you go on SOG selection. And from your Special Forces background of 2 Commando, you've done selection there.
Yep.
Were you worried, or were you thinking, like, and how different is joining SOG compared to being in 2 Commando and the professionalism of...
Yeah, so I had instructed on commando selections, their reinforcement cycle. So there is nothing that I haven't seen on a selection or like, the mind games or anything like that. The only thing that I was worried about being like in my 30s was getting injured and keeping up with these young fellas that full fitness freaks and stuff like that are there. But I remember rocking up to their somewhat sort of barrier test, and I was like strapped up like a mummy, like my knees and back and all this kind of stuff. And, like this battle, ridden, veteran that's just being held together by like, anti-inflammatories and
masking tape
and strapping tape and stuff. But yeah, so it was an interesting selection because it felt like I was like a fly on the wall because I just knew all the games. I knew all the answers to all the questions. And there was a period of time, I think it was about halfway through, that I wasn't even allowed to talk because I was giving all the information to the other candidates that was getting them out of punishments. So like, they would give us a mind teaser, or they'd give us a challenge to solve, and they'd sort of stood to look to me. I would tell them how to solve it, and then we wouldn't get punished. And that was like, so then when come the time when they would give us a challenge to do, they'd be like, yep, red one, you're not allowed to talk. And so then I would see them conducting themselves, and then I'm like, this sucks because now I can't affect the outcome and I'm going to get punished. I'm going to have to do like push-ups and burpees and stuff like that. And I'm not made for this stuff anymore. Like, so it was that was the hardest part, was not being able to talk and still having to conduct the punishments.
Yeah, right. And with when you're actually on, like you're doing your selection, are you like the shooting aspect? Like I know the standard is very, very high in 2 Commando. Is it it's obviously a high standard in the SOG, and being in your mid-30s, are you still like there was nothing that you struggled with?
Nah, shooting is my expertise. I'm still sharp as a tack there. I can shoot really, really well, and very, very competent in long arm and pistol, and that's my bread and butter. So the shooting aspect was just fantastic.
And how long was your selection to get into SOG?
My understanding was a week.
Yeah,
so,
right.
some testing at the start, and then some fitness stuff at the end. Some grueling sort of fitness stuff at the end.
So you pass, mate, and then you in that same year in 2017, you're taking your intake into SOG, and how is that, mate? When you get there, are you told? Because I've had a number of tactical guys on the podcast, and it was when they got there, it was told, shut up, you will go and you'll pick the bullets up, you'll sweep the floors,
clean the bins,
do all that sort of stuff. How were you, especially with your background? How were you received when you got into SOG?
Yeah, I was received quite well, because during the intake, I was sort of helping the instructors at the time as well, whether I was like acting as the offender or being a demo for certain things as well. So it was good when other members of the SOG came in and observed me sort of being competent, and so when I got to the actual office, and I'd worked with a number of guys on the roping course a number of years before, so I had a pretty good relationship. There was still some older fellas there that didn't quite understand where I've been and what I've done, and that's okay. The SOGers, they are the best at what they do in Victoria, and they do an incredible job arresting the worst offenders in Victoria, and they're very, very good at it. Or a number of arrest options that are utilised to creatively as well to conduct those arrests of those horrible individuals. I was ex-army, so whether I was a bit of a threat at some stage, whether I was new, so they wanted to treat me like that I was the new guy and clean the bins and stuff. But again, like I just let my personality shine again, and I would, you know, have good conversations with people and have those communication skills. And you know, there was a couple of run-ins there, but it was nothing really that, you know, I wasn't prepared for. And
at that point, was there other guys from the regiment that had done that lateral transfer into SOG as well, or were you?
So myself and another were the first commandos to do a lateral transfer to the SOG by doing the selection and intake. Post myself and this other operator, the commandos could come straight down and not do selection.
Yeah, right.
Because they sat us down and they said, some of the senior guys sat us down. They're like, how do we get more people like you? I'm like, mate, you need a can selection and you need to pay us more. And they're like, done.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, it sort of paved the way for more commandos to get in there. And yeah, it was shortly after I was there, I moved into a safety supervisor role for all the live fire stuff as well. So I was instructing and safety supervising the exercises that the SOG were doing. So there was a lot of change during that time of like different weapon handling, different drills. So I was like mentoring and coaching.
Which is your bread and butter.
Yeah, and even some of the older hands that had been at the SOG for, you know, decades were getting, like, it was like an old dog getting trained new tricks. And a number of times they sort of commented on my patience with them and my professionalism and how I would relay that information and training. So, and I bring it back to, you know, if you could be the best shot, the best at everything, be the smartest operator out, but if you can't train anyone and relay all that knowledge that you have, then what good are you? So I was able to, you know, effectively communicate and train these older guys up and the new guys as well. And hopefully I did I did it justice. Yeah.
I think, and because I spoke to one of my mates actually from WA TRG, and I said, did you guys, you know, interact with the regiment being, and they said, yeah, we would interact, and they'd let us use the kill house and all that sort of thing. Did you guys, like, because you had gone from 2 Commando across, did you still have that connection that you could go up and use the facilities if you needed to? Or
up in Sydney?
Yeah.
We didn't really use the ranges in Sydney. We went over to Perth to use the regiment's facilities there. And also we utilised a whole lot of live fire ranges in Singapore. So
okay,
we had a really good relationship with the Singapore police. And yeah, we would go over there as a sort of an exchange. We would, you know, train them up at the same time, and we would be able to use their ranges.
Yeah, right. And so, mate, you go into that sort of, as you say, that bread and butter, that safety, like teaching role, and then do you remember your first job that you were actually called out to when you were in SOG?
I don't remember the first job, but I remember my first like proper arrest of a crook. He was in a Bunnings, and he was walking out of the Bunnings, and we were going to grab him once he got out of the Bunnings. And so as he's walking out, he's got his arms full of, like, you know, paintbrushes and like plaster, you know, paint and all these. Both arms are just full of just all this random crap from Bunnings. And as I get out of the car and move towards him, we give the standard, like, police, you know, we challenge him, and as I've put my arms around him, he's opened his arms and just dropped all of these, you know, all of the stuff all over the ground. But he's actually shoved my hands up over his shoulders, and at the same time, so he's gone to run. I've sort of held onto him, swung around, scooped him up, and just like dumped him onto the ground. And my understanding is he spent a few days in the hospital after that with a bit of a sore head. So yeah, somebody that was watching said that it would have definitely been 3-4 weeks suspension if it was an AFL tackle.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'll note to criminals, mate. Don't run from SOG police officers.
Yeah, that's right.
Put your hands up and
yeah, that was the first. That was probably the first prominent one. It was so good to get that one on the board. To be the guy that grabbed the crook, arrested him, threw him on the ground, read him his rights, and handed him over to the investigators.
And with that, so that's the first job, and then there's other jobs throughout your next period that you involved in, and without going into too much detail, what are some of the jobs that you were involved in when you were in SOG?
Yeah, we would arrest, like I said before, the worst of the worst. We've arrested murderers, terrorists, high drug crime. So anything that's sort of outside the general duties as well. So if there was anything that was, they couldn't, they might not have been murderers or dangerous people, but they wanted to preserve evidence, then, we could come up with an arrest option and creatively arrest or lock down a stronghold to preserve the evidence for the investigators. So, there was a lot of those jobs, a lot of murders and, very, very, heinous assaults and things like that as well. Yeah.
Were you involved in many sieges?
Anything utilising a gun or, a weapon. Yeah, we did a lot of cordons, a heap of cordon call-outs. Yeah, so.
And then, mate, you're in SOG, and then in 2019, you actually go back to Afghanistan, and you're in Kabul.
Yeah.
How does this come up, and what are you doing?
Yeah, so when I transferred out of full-time army up at 2 Commando, I transferred to 1 Commando Regiment, which is a reserve regiment in Melbourne, and they still had the role of looking after, it was like a permanent PSD in Kabul, looking after a number of generals that were there. My role, and that base had a force protection element, so my role was I was the 2IC of that force protection element and the commander of a PSD that looked after one of the 2ICs of the general. And yeah, that was an amazing trip. I got to meet people from all over the world. It was an advisory group, so it was made up of all coalition forces. I used to take them to the range and teach them how to pistol shoot properly.
Right.
I used to literally have to break them down for all their old teachings and build them back up again. And that was a really, really cool trip as well.
And different, because you'd been in and out of Kabul with your PSDs. And
yep.
It's a bit different now that coalition forces hadn't been there for many, the fighting coalition.
Yep.
So different, rewarding trip for you, and
yep.
then you come back, and then, mate, COVID hits.
Yeah.
And what was it like being at SOG during those COVID times? Because being a police officer during COVID, I had a bloke on yesterday who said it was actually the best time of his career because there was no one on the streets.
Yep.
No one was doing crime.
Yep.
What was it like for you guys at SOG?
It was business as usual. So yes, everything was quiet, but the jobs still went on. There was still like violent crimes happening. So it didn't actually change. So we were still out there conducting arrests. Nothing really changed for us other than trying to separate. We were trying to separate sort of two teams and try and not get COVID and things like that as well. So yeah, all those things were in place, but yeah, everything sort of stayed pretty much very, very similar. And yeah, still conducting operations like normal. Yep.
And then, mate, in 2022, after 6 years in the police, you resign, and this is where your transition from really defence and being a police officer starts. And most veterans and first responders that I've had on the podcast struggle with transition.
Yep.
What made you come to that decision that, after 6 years being in the SOG, you're obviously loving it, you decide to transition, and then how was your transition once you did transition out?
Yeah, good question. I was at that crossroads again. I left full-time army to be a dad, to spend more time with my son. At the end of the police academy, we had our daughter, and so we've got 2 kids now. In the army, or specifically 2 Commando, I'd be away for long periods of time, obviously not at home, whether it was international engagements, exercises and deployments. At the SOG, I would be in my bed every night but I just didn't know when that was going to be. So potentially, I would leave before the kids woke up, and I was they were in bed by the time I got home. Or there was times where I'd been away for a couple of days or worked night shift, and I would sleep during the day when the kids were awake or at daycare or whatever it was. So they're kind of similar. So one, I'm away, yes, but the other one, I'm away, but I get to sleep in my bed. And, I would do, 10 days straight or a week straight, and then I would get a day or two off. During those day or two, they're called rest days. I would actually be resting so that I'm good to go again for work. And those rest days, my family sees the worst of me. I'm recovering from work, and my colleagues see the best of me. During COVID, I had obviously a lot more time to dwell on that and think about that, and I just thought that I wanted to flip that around. I want my family to see the best of me, not my colleagues see the worst of me either, but I wanted to be good for both. I didn't want my family, my wife and kids to see me tired, grumpy, all that kind of stuff. So made the decision to separate from police, and it was a family decision to spend more time with the family and to flip that script of them seeing the best of me.
And mate, I know one of my good mates from Northern Territory, he did the same thing. He said, I was at the pinnacle, I was in TRG, I was loving life, but it was a moment that his wife said, I think you and the kids would be better off if I'm not here. And he went, well, no, I'm not having my kids not have their mum around. And, and a few of the boys gave him, stick for going. But, mate, it's, and as you've said throughout your whole career, Chelsea has supported you through your dream to go and, be in the Commandos, then go into SOG. It's, you're pursuing what you love. Mate, hats off to you to then go, actually, it's time to put the family first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I spent, 2022 and 3 just working on Chelsea's business and the back end of that, and doing DIY projects around the house, and finding myself again, finding the old Adam, and so that was a big part of finding myself again.
Because as you say, mate, in 23 you start an e-commerce coaching business, and you do your leadership training in WA, and that for you've mentioned throughout the whole podcast that leadership is, you love it, and passing on what. If you can shoot and you can't pass on your skills, it doesn't matter how good you are. So was that a sort of a soft transitional piece for you at that point?
Yeah, I think I alluded to earlier that when I left Defence Police, I really liked what I loved about Defence and Police was being the teaching side of things. That's where I was in those leadership positions then, and being able to train and teach. That's what I loved. Leaving Police and Army, I didn't have that anymore. So I did a lot of DIY stuff around in 2022, and I got a phone call from one of my best mates who is the CEO of Founder Magazine. It's an entrepreneurial magazine. He sells, interviews some of the best entrepreneurs around the world, and sells digital products to support those entrepreneurs, building their businesses. He came to me and he was starting a coaching program, and he said, I'd love for you to be part of the coaching program and coach some of these, aspiring entrepreneurs. And then, I said yes to that. I did that with him, and that was me giving back again, being able to teach and relay all the gold that I'd got building up Chelsea's business and e-commerce business. And so that was that piece. And then side to that was I was heading over to WA to facilitate a team building and leadership program in some of the most arduous and harshest terrain in the Kimberleys in WA. Which,
mate, and it leads to so you you do that, mate, and then in 2024 you go on a 5-month family holiday.
Yep.
Which that probably would have, like for you, would have been a rewarding time to just spend with the family and have some time to sort of what's coming next.
Yep.
In that, was that sort of a just shut off, let's go and see a bit of Australia?
Yeah, Chelsea and I had always spoken about it. We had always planned it until we like sort of put it in the diary. Like it always got sort of pushed along, and it was never quite right. Obviously, COVID and getting the kids back at school and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, 2024 was going to be our year. 2023, we both just worked our absolute butts off, and saved up a bit of money to be able to take 5 months off and head around halfway around Australia for 5 months, which was just incredible.
Oh, mate,
such a beautiful
we
country.
live in a beautiful country, and mate, I know probably in the future you'll finish the next part of, you'll do the next part that you did half and the next half, and mate, you're not you don't shy away from challenges, and in the same year you do an ultra marathon in the Blue Mountains. You do 102 kilometres, where I was born, mate, and you've been on selection. You've been on selection for 2 Commando. You've gone on SOG selection. As you've said, you're a little bit older, mate. What goes through your mind when you're doing 102 kilometres and you're older now, so injuries, and what do you love about ultra marathons? That is it the challenge? Is it the distance? What is it that you love about these challenging events? Yeah,
so 2 years ago, it would have been New Year's Eve 2023, 2024, that I gave I set a goal to run 100 kilometres through the Blue Mountains. At that time, I was struggling to run 5-10Ks. My whole career, I've never ever said that I was a runner. I'm not good at running. I always had to train for everything. So I look like a runner.
You do.
but I was not a runner. So like I said, I was struggling to run 5-10Ks, the start of 2024. But I set myself a goal for May that year to run 100 kilometres through the Blue Mountains. And yeah, it was just consistency, creating that plan and executing that plan. And I wanted to be, and the reason I did it was, the 2022, 2023, I sort of not let myself go, but I hadn't done anything physically challenging. And one big thing about leaving the police and army, the one thing that I struggled with transition was the fear of my kids not being proud of me for being a commando or a SOG operator. Those words aren't going to come out of their mouth in the playground. They're not going to say, my dad is a commando, my dad is a SOG operator. I had to really work through that. That was the only thing that was actually stopping me from leaving, and the thing that I struggled with when I left. But I sort of, went back a few times with it, and it's just like, well, if my kids can say that there's obviously that, they can say that, and that's my own view on it under my own lens. Or, they say, hey, my dad's around, my dad's at all my sports events, my dad's, picks me up, drops me off at school. I think I'd much rather that than the later, than saying my dad's a commando or my dad's a SOG operator. Yeah. So I just if the day comes at my funeral, I want them to be able to stand up and say, Dad was around, Dad sacrificed for us, Dad was here for this and that. It would break my heart to think that they stood up there and said, Dad worked a lot. We don't really have much to say, but his colleagues are going to get up and tell us how amazing of a person he was, because we never actually got to see him. It's just that would break anyone.
And you, it's a key point you touch on there, because now that you're a parent, you understand the sacrifices that your mum and dad went through, and as a parent, you think you're doing the right thing by, you got to get the food on the table, so you got to go and work the weekends, and you miss the soccer game or you miss the footy game, and at the time you think you're doing the right thing because, and there's a lot of sacrifice that comes,
and that's not. No one ever tells you about that feeling of working harder for them, but then missing out on the time that is precious that
and
you
can't get it back.
That you can't get back. Yeah, and going back on your other question, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole
no,
there. But
mate, it's great.
I set the goal. I wanted to prove or show my kids and family and friends as well that like I can still do hard things. 2 years just working at the computer. I'm like, okay, it's time to do something physically challenging again. And I really, really loved. It wasn't about running the 100Ks. At the end, I didn't really feel anything. It was the journey and the progress to get to that level, and all the little learnings along the way that I learnt about the running and nutrition and all that kind of stuff. That was the stuff that I enjoyed. My kids would be riding bikes and I'd be running. Them to see me sweating, them to see the pain on my face. I want to show them what hard work looks like. I want to show them what setting a goal looks like and then accomplishing it. They get front row seats at that. So, they don't. If I was at the SOG or Commandos, they don't get to see me at work. They actually get to see me putting in the hard work to achieve a goal that I've set out that I wanted to do. So, I think there's a lot of value in that.
Absolutely, and mate, I know it too. We spoke off air before we started that. I remember the first triathlon I ever did. And it took me a year of preparation and I didn't have it all my own way on the day. Like I got an injury at the start, and then I had to work. My whole plan of what I wanted to do went out the window, and it was just a moment of each step going, I've got this, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then, as I told you, I did the City to Surf last year. I've never run more than 10Ks in my life, and I ran because we were raising funds because my little niece was stillborn, and I didn't stop, which I was absolutely proud of. And the biggest thing that was pushing me to keep going was, Adam, this is only physical pain. The pain that my brother and sister-in-law are going through, times that by 1,000,000, and they have that daily, every single day, that they will never hold, that their little daughter was never born. So I'm just like, keep going, mate. You can do this. And, mate, your first, and all the emotion that comes, I know you have a wave of emotion as well. Did you have, when you got to the ultra in the Blue Mountains, did it go on the day you've done your race prep? Did you have it all your own way on the race day?
Yeah, so not exactly. So, and one thing as well about the trail running is that was like my vice. Like it was like my escape as well. My whole career I hated running, but for some reason I really loved trail running, and that's what I leaned into. So I don't hate running. I just hate running on like a road or something boring. Me running through the trails, I'm like, oh, look at that. Oh. So it like
forgetting I'm running.
Yeah, it spiked like there's so I'm like, oh, echidna. And I take a photo of it, and So it just it really, I just love that feeling of it's something different looking at and for long periods of time. And so that 60 kilometres into that race or that event, wasn't really a race. I wasn't racing. I was just trying to finish. 60 kilometres in, I injured my ITB, which is like a muscle in my glute had sort of seized up and tightened. And that's what is attached to my ITB along my left sort of thigh. And the ITB is attached to sort of like the outer side of your knee. And every step felt like a knife was turning in my knee every single step that I took from 60 kilometres. So I had another 42 kilometres to go with this excruciating pain in my knee. And the only thing that got me through there was using the hard times that I've been through and the traumatic events and living for the people that can't. That's what got me through that next 40 Ks of like excruciating pain. Yeah.
And I know other people would, wouldn't be able to, like some would say, that's it, stop, can't push on any further. But you've been through hard times. You've been on selection. You've been sleep deprived. You've had no food.
Yeah.
You've been in combat. You've lost guys. You're in a bit of an advantage because you can draw on all those experiences to finish. And because I remember watching you because I'd followed you for a little while, and I remember watching you come across the line and the photos and the sheer joy that was on your face, even though you were in agony.
Yeah.
It would have been like, of everything that you've done, you're proud of your commando selection, you're proud of your commando beret, SOG, but looking at that, that's something not military, it's not first responder space.
Yep.
Looking at that, you're proud of that?
100%. Yeah. I'm proud that I set myself the goal and I achieved it. Like I've still got it. You know what I mean? I'm close to 40, 39 years old now, and to be able to do that, what else can I achieve? And I'm looking. I want to keep going. Like I've got some really cool plans in the future. I have some physical plans as well. And I don't want this to be a. Yeah, this is just. I'm just getting warmed up. Yeah.
So, mate, you finish the ultra in the Blue Mountains, and in that same year, mate, you do another ultra marathon down in Mount Kosciuszko for 107 kilometres.
Yeah, correct.
What, you just can't get enough of pain, or you just wanted to, you'd gone through the toughness of Blue Mountains and the sheer pain in your knee with a knife sticking in, you decided, I'll go around again in Mount Kosciuszko.
Yeah, I had something to prove. Like I wanted to solidify it wasn't just a fluke. I wanted, when you accomplish a task once, you want to do it again to really ram it home that, it was not just a fluke. So, after the Blue Mountains run, I flew. We were probably about halfway through our trip, our caravanning trip around Australia. So I flew from Geraldton in WA over to Sydney, got a train up to Blue Mountains, did the run, and flew back to Geraldton, and then continued on the trip. The caravan trip with the family, finished up there in October, back to Melbourne, and then I think I just got itchy feet and was just like, I think I'm going to bang Kosciuszko in as well. So it was, and I had a friend that was into trail running as well, and he was hammering me to say that was like his, home ground. So I bought the ticket, and Chelsea and the family, we all went up there together, and this time they were able to actually see me be there at the start line and see me at the finish line, which was really, really amazing.
And Blue Mountains is arduous, it's tough, it's cold, and Kosciuszko is a different, I remember seeing it, you were in snow, then you were back down in...
I was in a blizzard.
Yeah. So what's going through your mind there? Because you'd done your mountaineering. So was that you're going through in your head race prep, like you're preparing for all elements and all things that are going to pop up on this ultra marathon.
Yep.
You're cold, you're wet. And did everything go to plan this time? You didn't get injured?
Didn't get injured, but 22 kilometres in, I was paused at one of the aid stations because of lightning. So we were there, we were waiting for a storm to pass, and everything kind of slowed down. You start to get cold again, and so that was a bit of a shame that I got stopped for an hour or two, I believe. And then I had to continue running. And I didn't get warmed up. I started hurting around the 40K mark. And I was just like, yep, okay, we're on here now. Like, this is, like, the body started to sort of hurt a bit. And that's when the real race actually starts. It starts when you start feeling the pain and being in that hurt locker. That's where the magic happens. So that was around that 40 sort of K mark for me. I got to see the family at one of the checkpoints around maybe the 70K mark, around that 70, 80K. It was torrential rain. It was raining the whole time. The last 10 Ks or 14 Ks or so, we had to run up this other hill, and it was the Eagle's Nest, I believe it was, and it was there was like a blizzard up there. So not really signposted, no staff out on the track. It was pretty intense, but I knew that if I could see a metre in front of me and I was on the right path, then I'm just going to keep going. And without being able to see wind and rain coming in on a 90-degree angle, it was really cold, but I'd been through worse, so I could just keep going. And I got back down to the bottom of the finish line, and there was some people really, really struggling, like hypothermia and doing the funky chicken and stuff like that. So it was finished up, and got to see the family and the kids at the finish line, which was amazing. And then we went back to Melbourne, and that was close to the end of last year, and just geared up for 2025.
And in that, like, you're, as you said, you stopped out of your control.
Yep.
But you're running for how long did it continuously take you to finish that 107 kilometres? Yeah,
so the first one in the Blue Mountains was 17 hours and 50 minutes. The Mount Kosciuszko run was, I think it was 20-something hours, maybe 21, 22 hours. But with a minus a couple, however long the break was. Yeah.
And in that, for people who are out there listening to this, when you're out there, you're in the hurt locker, you're in your own thoughts, is that where you love to be at? Is that where you are, it's just you versus you?
Yep. And it's therapeutic. It is, you're not, there's nothing else in your mind. You're just one foot in front of the other. And it's like therapy. Like running through the tracks, it's like therapy to me. And that pain, once it starts hurting, I love, that's where I love being, because that's where the most growth is as well. That's when you know that you're really going to benefit from it, and well,
what's the old saying? You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable if you want to grow, and you, like, for you, you're in that, you're in that zone, and you're in your own thoughts, and are you, like, you're sitting there going, like, are you amazed, like, when you're in that hurt locker, of how much further we can push ourselves than we think we can?
Yeah, and that's a big thing as well. It's like our bodies can do so much more than what our minds think. And if I can struggle to run 5-10 Ks, a year ago and 2 years ago, and then get a couple of 100 Ks under my belt, then people can do that. Other people can do that too. Like it's slow progression. Moving the needle every day. That's the outcome. If you don't look at the marathon and go, yes, sweet. I would never be able to run a marathon, but you can run, a kilometre today. You can run, 2 kilometres next week, and it's just slow baby steps. Yes, you may not be able to run a marathon tomorrow, but don't look at it like that. That you've got small achievable goals to do to get to that big goal.
Mate, prime example, first time I ever did my first triathlon, I went, I can't do a triathlon. I trained, I got a coach, I learned, and then achieved that, and then went, oh wow, I actually can do that. And then the City to Surf, as you say, I'd only ever run 5 kilometres.
Yep.
And I had injuries going into it, and I'd run a 10K on the treadmill before to, you know, and I was struggling with injuries, and I spoke to my physio and I said, I don't think I'm going to get this. I can't, like these injuries I've got, I can't push that extra foot. He goes, you will do it. Yeah. On the day, you will just turn up, you'll hit the 10K mark, your body knows what it's like to do that 10K,
yep.
and the next 4, your body will just take over. And I can tell you, when I got to 12K, mate, I was in the Hurt Locker hard, and the last 2K, there was not much left. It was literally the emotions, I felt my niece with me every step that I took, and I crossed that line, mate, and I just looked and went, I was so proud that, and as you're saying, we can push further than we think we can.
100%. And there's a level of adrenaline as well that's pumping through our body that gives us that extra lift during an event as well. So, that you're just not going to be able to get during training.
Absolutely, and mate, come race day, everyone loves race day. So the nerves are there, but you know, and you've got your tactical. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. This is how I'm going to do it. And then sometimes it does, as you know, in the Blue Mountains, it didn't happen. You had that injury, and you've got to find that, you got to overcome that adversity, and it's like you do on selection. It's not just guaranteed that you're going to get through.
Yeah, I'm pretty I'm competitive. Like if you ask my family, I'm really competitive and a little bit stubborn. So if I say that I'm going to do something, I am going to do it. And apart from getting injured or something like that, or something out of my hands, then I will move mountains to achieve that goal. If I say it, if I verbalize it, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And all my friends and family will attest to that as well, that if I say that I'm going to do something, they all look at me like I'm crazy. Whether it's a DIY task around the house, whether it's, you know, running 100Ks. Like I had people laugh at me when I said I'm going to run 100 kilometres. They're just like, there's no way you're going to be able to do that.
And all that does is add fuel to your fire and go, thanks, thank
don't
you.
They know it. Yeah. So, you know, again, like I was going to build a deck or build concrete front stairs out the front of my house.
Oh, mate, you've done a great job at that.
They just look at the looks. If I could just capture those looks,
you'd be a millionaire. You'd be a multi-millionaire.
Yeah, and I do. I everything that I say, I do. And, you know, everyone should take a little bit of that as well. It's just when I was running and training for these races, when I said that this is what I was doing, they're like, oh, yeah, I could never do that, or I can't run. Well, that's the first issue, right? You're saying it and you believe what you say.
You're almost talking yourself out of it before you even start.
100%. And yeah, so I just blurt out whatever what I'm doing. Then next minute, I say to Chelsea, "This is what I'm going to do," and she just rolls her eyes, and then she's just like, you know, that's impossible, or you know, you won't be able to do that, or whatever. And then then I'll mention it again. And she's just like, oh no, it's happening again. You know, Adam's going to hyper focus on something and go out and just prove everybody wrong.
But it's a great mindset to have, mate, because like I've been told that myself. Like I've been told, you know, I was laughed at when I said that, you know, I would become a published author. People laughed at me and go, you published author? And some of my old teachers even look at me and go, you're a published author? I'm like, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Good thing I didn't listen to. And same as the podcast, mate. I was laughed at when I said I was going to start a podcast, and now we're 160 episodes in.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people out there that listen to this, don't let the naysayers say you can't do something.
Exactly.
Use that fuel as to add to the fire to go, I'm going to prove you wrong. Like, I'm going to show you. And you know, like no matter what you do in life, like selection, you were probably told you're going to do selection ads. Okay, yeah, right. You went and did it, and you had a distinguished career in the commandos. Go and do SOG selection. You're going to be a police officer. You just go and prove people wrong, and the proof is in your action by taking the steps to, and don't let people turn you off something. If you've got a goal and you've got an ambition, go for it.
100%.
So, no, mate. And absolutely. Like, I remember watching when you finished Kosciuszko as well, and just absolute weapon, mate. You are just a weapon. And as you say, mate, I've just seen you recently finish your stairs at home, and mate, they look fantastic.
Yeah,
so
I'm proud of them.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. They look fantastic, and mate, so it leads to your current day of what you're doing. So you're doing some CP work, and without going into too much detail. What's your role here? Are you in a leadership role, or what are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm a security advisor, contract security advisor for ultra high net worth individuals here in Melbourne and around the world as well. So yeah, I just pick up contracts and just solve problems and have the security of the client, whether it's myself or working with a team to in their normal business as usual around their day-to-day work from home to office sort of stuff, but then also travelling with them overseas and looking after them internationally as well.
And do you like that it's a challenging role? You're sort of implementing everything you've learnt through both being in the commandos, in the police, and you get to use, and you love leadership and teaching, and you get to problem solve.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of it is being a people person, having a good level of EQ, and being a problem solver. And I love engaging with clients and VIPs and all that kind of stuff because their status means nothing to me. It's when, like, I'm not starstruck by anybody. So I can talk to them at a level that we just get on, and that's the barriers that I break down pretty early. And that's what I just love being able to do that. Yeah.
So, mate, you get to, obviously now you're out of the military, you're out of the police. It's a bit of a higher paying job now, like this one. And
I'm getting looked after.
Yeah, you get to go and see some pretty cool sights around the world,
and choose what I want to do as well. So that was a big thing as well. So every time a gig had come up, I'd talk to Chelsea. Hey, how do we benefit from this? How does the family benefit from it? Do we get it? Does the family get a trip out of it overseas somewhere? Whatever I'm doing and wherever I'm doing, I incorporate the family now.
Of course.
So yeah, that's a non-negotiable.
I love it, mate, and it's great. And mate, it's great to see that you've set things now in place, that all your hard work and the fruits of your labour are now actually starting to ripen into that. You get to have that say and that freedom to. You've earned that right, mate, because you've served our country in both the military and the police. So, mate, well done on that. And
thank you.
Mate, knowing what you know now and all that you've been through, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self, and would he listen?
Would he listen? And what advice? I would just give him the advice of just, other than some investment opportunities, if I could sneak a couple of little investment strategies his way. But other than that, I would just say, mate, keep doing what you're doing. Stay on the path. Keep enjoying. I probably wouldn't have wanted to be told what to do. So it would have just been keep on that path. You're doing a good thing. Stay true to yourself. And I think I would have listened and been happy with just continue on the path, because I've had mentors throughout my whole life, and hearing that from them as well, like, stay, you're on a good path, you're a good guy, good things are going to happen, treat everyone the way that you want to be treated. I would just keep continuing on the path. If that's the advice.
No, I think it's great advice to any young player out there is, and I know it too now that I'm in my mid-30s, is don't get caught up in what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
Just keep on your own path, and as you said, mate, you are a good person, and I truly believe this, mate, that if you put good out into the world, good comes back.
Yep.
It really does. And opportunities are presented, doors are opened.
Yep.
And that's the thing that you. And I truly believe the harder you work, the luckier you become.
My wife and I speak about that, all the time. Is, the harder you work, the luckier you get, and that resonates a lot with us, because we don't socialise that often. We don't. There's a lot of work that goes in behind, like business and things like that as well. We don't, like I said, we don't go out that often, but we travel is our sort of outlet, and every single day we're working. There's no time to sit on the couch, watch movies, watch series. Like we do a little bit of that at the end of the night, but we are flat stick working our butts off. 7 days a week.
And mate, I appreciate you taking the time to fly up here to record this podcast. Like, I know that it's not easy. It's to be vulnerable and share your story, and give up time away from the family to be here. So, mate, I thank you for coming and taking time out of your busy schedule to sit and record this. It really means a lot. Really, thank you.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate you giving this a voice as well. So not only is it legacy, my kids can, listen to this. I would have loved this for my ancestors and the past generation to be able to listen to what they got up to. And, I'm always looking, interested about family trees and all that kind of stuff. So, mate, if somebody could listen to this, like my great granddad, they're just like, this. Adam's,
my granddad was he was a he was a badass. Like, he did some cool things.
But and then imagine they wanted to go down that same line, or they found some type of positivity in that, and got a lesson out of that. Then wow, that's amazing.
Absolutely. And mate, what advice would you give to anyone who is thinking of joining the military, but then also going down that path of, special forces, be it to Commando or the SAS, both to how to physically prepare and mentally prepare?
Yeah, don't do what I did and just go in cold. Maybe research it a little bit more, be a bit more prepared. Take less going out gear and less hair products and things like that.
Oh, if only you and I could have that issue now, mate. When people say, "Oh, my hair," I go, that's nice. Same for you.
I rocked up to selection with all my bags, and the majority of it was like civvies and going out gear and like random things, and everyone else had everything that was on the list. I thought that I was going to have weekends off and I was going to be able to call home and stuff like that. So, maybe do a little bit more research into going into selection. But you only live once. Live for those that can't. Find a hard thing that's happened to you in the past and use that as the stepping stone to go and achieve something great. If it's SOG, the SOG, if that's what you want to go down, or any police tactical group that you want to go down, why not give it a go? Why not? There's the only thing that's stopping you is you, and you want to look back at your life and not regret the things that you didn't give a go. So that's pretty much how I live my life. I grab the horns and I ride that bull, as hard and as fast as I can, because I don't want to look back on my deathbed and go, man, I should have done this or I should have done that. I'm going to look back and go, oh wow, that was pretty crazy.
And you don't want to live in regret, mate, because and that's the thing. Denzel Washington says that really well. He's like, I don't want to sit at the end of my life and have 7 Denzels around my bed looking at me going, what if you did this? What if you did that?
Yep.
What if you took that chance? What if you did this? We get one shot, mate. And you know all too well, mate, that you've served with some amazing guys that they made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. they are their age forever.
Yeah.
They are, and a lot of them, some of them now, mate, you've outlived how old they were when they passed.
Yep, exactly. And that's something, every birthday I look at that and go, wow, like, Brett was 32 when he died, and when I turned 32, I was in my like mid 20s or early 20s or something like that when he died, and I used to look at him as like this wealth of knowledge at 32 years old, experience, battle proven dude. When I turned 32, I was just like, whoa, wow, it was quite surreal.
And mate, that you've become a father. Some of these guys Brett never got the chance to be a father.
Exactly.
Cam, same thing, never, and that's the thing. We've just got to live every day as it could be our last.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, every single day that we wake up is a blessing. Yeah.
Mate, looking back now, you served with some amazing guys in 2 Commando, and 2 Commando, took the heaviest hit of the Afghanistan campaign, losing 12 guys in operation, and 1 killed in Mason Edwards in pre-deployment. Mate, how do you often, like, we've got Anzac Day, we've got Remembrance Day, but how do you reflect on their service and their sacrifice? Yeah,
well, you mentioned Anzac Day and Remembrance Day. I feel that they are a good circuit breaker to reflect on those guys and reflect on the ones that aren't with us. Life is really busy, and it is full on. I don't like dwelling on the past. I don't like worrying about the future. I live very much in the now, and if I can pull anything from the past into the now as a learning, I will. But yeah, I don't like to dwell too much on it, and I use those key dates like Anzac Day, Remembrance Day, to reflect on those guys. And I use it's that year reminder to be able to reflect and be so grateful that I'm living my life and on a path that I'm choosing.
Yep.
And I say to my kids, every second day that you got to be happy because we're living for the ones that can't.
Yeah.
And that's how I reflect.
Mate, I love that, because, and the good thing is you're reminding your kids that, that life is short.
Yeah.
And we have to make the most of it while we're here. And, if you can leave the world and leave the people that you love better for you being here and your presence than when you do pass, mate, that's all you can ask.
Yeah.
That's all you can ask. And, mate, looking back now and everything that you've gone through, was joining the army and becoming a police officer, apart from marrying Chelsea and having your kids, still the best decision?
Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't change a thing, to be honest. It's gotten me to where I am right now. That you talk about those sliding doors moments. If I hadn't have done that, then, I wouldn't have been with Chelsea. I wouldn't have had my beautiful son and my absolutely gorgeous daughter. I wouldn't have experienced the things I would have been experiencing. And I experience things better now because of those decisions. So, I don't think I'd change a thing. Yeah, don't regret it at all. And if I could do it again, I would.
Yeah, what a wild ride, mate.
Yeah.
And, mate, with how Afghanistan ended up, what are your thoughts on, the mission to fight the war on terror, and, with the losses, the setbacks, and the way it ended up? Do you reflect on, was it all worth it?
Good question. I don't dwell on it, but if it comes up, I know that myself and the guys that I was with, like the commando teams and commando companies, did the best they could with what they had and what we did at the time. We made an incredible impact on the Uruzgan area, and if we gave a little bit of peace and a little bit of security, a little bit of safety to those people for that period of time, then that was something. You know, hopefully they can use that as their sign of hope. You know, but all I know is that I don't like to get too bogged down in the politics of it and whether it was worth it or not. I look at the positives and say that we did a bloody good job when we were there to now be a world-renowned regiment, and that's what I take on, the positives of us doing a really, really good job over there.
No, mate, I think what you guys achieved, you know, as you say, the SAS's reputation was forged in Vietnam. Two Commandos' reputation was forged in Afghanistan. People know they knew who 4RR Commando now, the 2nd Commando Regiment, is because of Afghanistan. And the hard fighting, the setbacks, the losses, people know who 2 Commando are now. And, mate, as you said, it was a privilege to be part of that unit and serve with some unbelievable humans and part of history.
Yep, 100%.
And, mate, I've got a few final questions, and I'm going to finish up with the recent what happened in Bondi, the terrorist attack, and get your perspective, both being ex-military and also being ex-police. Mate, what advice would you give to anyone who is thinking of, you know, going down the path of a first responder with the traumas that they see on a day-to-day basis? What advice would you give to them that if they're thinking of that career path?
I wouldn't go into join the job or that career path because that's your passion and that's what you want to do. Don't go in there with a mindset of, oh, I'm going to see this or I'm going to see traumatic events or this and that. That's just a byproduct of the job. So, and they're going to train you up to inoculate you from that as well, with the training scenarios and exercises and things like that as well. So if it's your passion and that's the goal that you set, then 100% go for it. It's purpose outside of yourself, and you're providing to the community. You know, that's an amazing thing to do. So I say go for it. If that's what you want to do, don't think about the traumas or the negatives about the job. If once you get to it, and that's just part of the job. So, yeah.
What advice, or in your opinion, with, you know, first responders seeing, as you mentioned, you just said it, with the traumas that they see on a day-to-day basis, what support do you, in your opinion, that needs to be implemented for the traumas that first responders see on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it first needs to be their leadership groups need to support them, and however they're feeling, to get them over that. They need to talk about it, conduct after action reviews correctly, and go through the bouncing balls of processing what happened. It's not just a should be right, mate, or
tick and flick,
flick. Oh, here's a little book. Oh yeah, you went through it. You know, you're at a suicide yesterday. Here's a booklet on like how to process suicide. It's like, I'm not going to read that book. Like, sit me down and talk to me. Ask me how I am. Sit me down and give me the phone number, or put the phone in my ear for somebody to talk to. So we want our first responders to be the best at their job, and we want them to be coming back to work fresh and good to go, because these are the people at the end of the day that are looking after our loved ones. So we should be looking after them more, and
should be paying them more.
Should be looking after them more, and these are the community members. When things go to shit, the community then look to them to help. So, why wouldn't we?
Well, you've been there. You've served as a police officer. You know that it is a challenging job day to day. Like, it is, it's an unrelenting job. It's you don't get a lot of praise. You get more people throwing cameras up, trying to, catch police out. It's, and mate, as you say, if we didn't have police, mate, or emergency services, I'd hate to think how society would be. It'd be, hate to think.
A lot of the flies.
Yeah. And so shout out to all, police, fire, ambulance, corrective services. You guys do an amazing job, and just thank you for your service. And I know, mate, because you've served both. So it's echoed by you as well. So, mate, what are your plans going forward with your family into the future now?
Yeah, so 2026 is predominantly shaped around spending as much time with the family as possible. My wife and I have a side business to her professional home organising business. We've created a DVA cleaning service where we look after veterans with service-related injuries. Mm-hmm. We help them get approved for house cleaning and certain things around the house. And it's a bit of a confusing and convoluted sort of system. So I've put in a process to simplify that whole process, get a cleaner into these, or firstly get the veteran with service-related injuries approved for their entitlement, and then get a cleaner in, whether it's a weekly or fortnightly cleaner, depending on their injuries, to get them in there and, shedding a bit of light. There's a lot of veterans out there that are dealing with struggling at the moment. So if I can have one little piece of the puzzle of, helping them through to get a cleaner into their house, and that gives them a little bit of motivation, sparks a bit of, puts a twinkle back in their eye, every week when they get their house cleaned, then, I've done my job. So we've put together this business, and the goal is to help as many veterans out there as possible. It's a sort of a give back piece for me. I obviously am a veteran, so I know exactly the process, and I just want to give back and help as many veterans as I can get their houses cleaned, reset them for the week ahead, and help mentally or physically those guys that are struggling. So
if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do it? And if they want to get a part of this new program that you've set up, how do they get in contact with you?
So there's two ways. I share everything on my Instagram. It's my personal Instagram. It's just sort of at Smitty, so SMIDY. You can either find me there, or on my wife's website. It's www.theorganisingplatform, spelt with S's, and organisingplatform.com, and you can just go to our services and then click on DVA cleaning services and fill out the form, and we'll start onboarding you straight away and getting a cleaner into your house as soon as possible. Yeah.
And we'll put all the links in the show notes, and so people, if they do need a service, mate, and it's nationwide around Australia?
Nationwide, yep, correct.
Yeah, awesome. Mate, you said you need a purpose out of service, mate. This is giving. It's giving back again, mate.
100%. And
doing what mate, as we've said throughout the whole podcast, it's service and helping others, and that's what it's all about. And
it is,
mate. You might not be wearing the blue, the blue or the green anymore, but you're still serving in another way, and by helping just ease that pressure of people that are struggling and maybe can't just make that, I'm not well enough to clean, or I've got injuries, or mate, just take that burden off them and that pressure. Great work.
Now, a lot of the guys and girls with service-related injuries don't even know that this entitlement exists.
Yeah.
So that's my goal for 2026, just educating people and getting the word out there and giving that helping hand to help them through that process, get them approved, and get someone into their help.
And mate, I'll finish with a quote in a minute. And as you said, spend time with your family. do this new venture that you're doing, mate, which is unreal. And mate, you've earned that time now. You've served, your country and your state, and mate, you've earned that time now with your family and through hard work and sacrifice. And I mentioned, mate, that recently, just gone in December, we had a terrorist attack in Bondi. 15 people were tragically killed. I don't include the gunman, I'm not including him, but the 15 innocent people. Mate, you've served in both 2 Commando and also in Victoria in the Special Operations Group. I want to get your thoughts on the situation and some of the keyboard warriors that were out there slagging off the police. From a military perspective, how do you, and we've spoken as well that this won't be an isolated attack. There is, people must be living under a rock if they think that this is it. There's obviously, we pray that there's not, but we've got to live in reality that more attacks are likely to happen. Mate, just give me your military perspective and then also your police perspective of what happened and the tragic events at Bondi.
Yeah, so my first posting to the Tactical Assault Group in Sydney was in 2012. So we would be briefed in on, likely terrorist, threats and things like that, and then we would train specifically for any threat that would arise in any environment, any area, all that kind of stuff. So we were completely briefed in, and there was terrorist attacks happening globally at that stage, and I think the Australian public were in a bit naive to think that this kind of stuff wouldn't happen in Australia. We're an island, surrounded by sea, border. And I used to have friends and family say, nothing like that will ever happen here. And I used to just be like, wow, now it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And they would just sort of pay me off. But yeah, it was unfortunately inevitable. There was obviously the isolated sort of attacks, and the government and law enforcement would blame mental illness and things like that. Oh yeah, they're just a bit of a fanatic. But you cannot hide away from what happened at Bondi. And there needs to be, this is a time of accountability and ownership, and we haven't seen any of that. So my thoughts and blessings go to the people that died, the injured, and the friends and family of those people, but also the first responders and, the lifeguards and just anybody that was there that helped. Any first responder, I'm just going to scoop them all up and just say everyone was there. They're going to suffer they're going to have scars from that day for the rest of their lives. That should not have happened in Australia. That should not have happened, but it did. And there needs to be accountability. Organisations need to be held accountable for it, that they're going to stamp it out. Instead of blaming guns and blaming speech, like bringing in speech laws, no, that's not what we need to do. We need to have some accountability on, like, how did this happen? How did this slip through the cracks? How is there people on terrorist watch lists being able to freely travel internationally and come back?
Hold gun licenses.
And hold gun licenses. That should have been flagged. Mate, we can send somebody to the moon. We can have Chat GPT create things for us and programs. There should have been some type of flag or trigger that sent some handler a text message, an email, something to say, hey, maybe we should have a look at this. I'm confused, how this slipped through the cracks. But it's not slipping through the cracks. I would assume that this is not an isolated incident. There would be a lot of holes to plug, and we have some accountability to get up and say, we stuffed up. this is how we're going to fix it. But there's been none of that. It's just been blaming, and that is not what the Australian public need to see and want to see. We want accountability. We want to see good leadership, and we want to see heads roll.
And I think too, mate, and I'm going to get your, we'll delve into, the training in a minute for the police on the ground, and I want to really hone in a little bit on the weapons, because I want the general public to understand that the limiting capabilities that the general duties police have, because I want to really dive in with your military background of weapons and also your tactical background being with both military and police. But it's like a knee-jerk reaction that, we'll just bring in tougher gun laws.
Yeah.
Like that to me it's a knee-jerk reaction.
It's like the machete bins in Melbourne.
$14 million, good on you, thanks. That's great for taxpayers' money.
Every single week, still machete attacks happening right now, every weekend, weekdays. So
the bins haven't worked.
Exactly. It's a knee-jerk reaction. It's not your Joe Blow with a machete out there using it out in the jungle and bushcraft. He hands in his machete, but do you think the crooks are going to hand in their machetes?
Not a chance.
I don't think so.
Not a chance.
What a stupid idea.
And if anything, the thing that annoys me is that, so for the 99% of law-abiding citizens that have guns and do the right thing, they're now going to be punished and have sanctions brought in on them because of this attack. To me, that's not going to solve the issue. If anything, it's going to create more of an issue because we're going to have less weapons to defend ourselves.
Yeah, when I was in high school, in English, again, not my strongest suit, I used to finish some of my essays with guns don't kill people, people kill people.
Yep.
And this was on like a Macbeth essay, like reading a book, because it had nothing to do with the essay. And the comments I would get from the English teachers, like, yeah, good comment, but it's got nothing to do with, the above essay. And that's exactly what it is. It's the guns aren't killing people; it's people kill people, and sort that out first before you start taking the guns away from people. It's ridiculous.
And that's right, mate. And I think that there's a bigger issue here of, we need to look at maybe capping migration into our country and look at immigration and look at whether there's, better screening that can be done or things. We closed the border once. We closed the border during COVID.
Yep.
Like, you look at the way that, and mate, you've hit the nail on the head. Accountability, it doesn't seem to, and leadership. You've spoken through the podcast of leaders like Brett. So many good humans that are great leaders, mate. At the moment, we are lacking leadership at the top.
Yep.
And there seems to be this, don't worry about it. This will all pass over. No. Where is the accountability?
Yep.
The buck stops with, I'm sorry, it stops at the top.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's not there. And anyway, I'm not going to go down the political side of things because I don't want to hijack your podcast. But, mate, I want to talk from to the civilian public out there, that the keyboard warriors that were out there attacking the police. There's photos of the girls, after the event, with their hands up saying, and, it was taken out of context, and, police are, they've said on some of the comments, because I've read them, that police were cowering and under vehicles and all these, and what they don't realise is that girl that had her arms up, there was reports of a IED under the bridge, and it was telling people to get back.
Yep.
And the terrorists were using 7.62 rounds.
Yeah.
You know what 7.62 rounds do.
Yep.
They pierce through cars.
Oh, yeah.
So these guys were well drilled. They had the high ground, and from a military perspective, you guys are taught to fire and move, and that's what you do. That's your bread and butter. But as a police officer, as a general duties, you're not taught that, are you? That's not the role of a general duties police officer, is it?
It's not the role, but you are taught fire and moving, but it's all it's in a static environment. You've got a static target or static offender pretending to be, a bad guy, and you're moving from, bollard to bollard. You get given the bare basics. This is not their bread and butter. 99.9% of their job is, dealing with the public, dealing with offenders, low crime sort of stuff. This is the 1% that they're training for, or that might happen in their career, right? So shooting, like you said, he had multiple long arms
with scopes,
7.62, with aiming devices, and for a young police officer with a handgun, it's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. They're trained to shoot maybe once a year, 10 rounds at a target that's like maybe 5, 7, 10 meters away. They shoot, it's all static environment. They shoot, pack up, and then that's it. These are not the subject matter experts in closing up with an offender, shooting from long range with your pistol at a heightened position whilst he's pointing a rifle at you. That's not their job. They did an incredible job what they did, what they had. That police officer that took them down, used the tree there. Again, that tree was a little bit of concealment, a little bit of cover, but it wasn't much. If that terrorist was switched on, he would have probably aimed at the legs and all that kind of stuff. But that dude was not fitting behind that tree. No. But he did an incredible job, stayed staunch, and just whacked him.
And I've heard that he in his off time he was a pistol shooter.
Yeah, there you go.
And goes and trains and took a 40-meter shot, which with a Glock, as you know, the
well-aimed shot.
The capability is roughly 20 meters. That's accurate.
No, you can still shoot them up to 50 meters, no worries. But it was he did a really, really good job,
especially with
up
fire
against the
coming
tree.
back.
Yeah, exactly right. That's a whole nother game. That's a whole nother ball game when you've got rounds coming back your way. And the police did a good job.
Absolutely,
but
mate.
And if you want to look at it, they're like, oh, where are the tactical police? Like, they can't be everywhere. They could have been somewhere else in the state at that time. They could have, and then there's other comments like, oh, why didn't they get on a helicopter and fly there? And it's like, well, what's the there's not guys just waiting there in a helicopter ready to go. So. And
being that it was declared a terrorist attack, being that you were in TAG. And this is, I know the answer to this, but I'm asking from the general public, and you being that you were in TAG, why was TAG not deployed to that situation?
It was over too quickly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The TAG would be deployed if it was a more prolonged terrorist attack. If it went on any longer, then for sure. But if it's over, it's unfortunately those type of things is over pretty quickly, and the GDs, the general duty police officers, are going to be the ones on the ground dealing with it. So we need to support them. We need to give them training, the correct training, so that they're the active shooter training, the long arm training. They should,
I was going to ask you that.
So
with that long arm, do you think that general duty should have locked in the back of a vehicle that they can, if they have, do this training, to then go and have a long arm to stop this?
Yeah, 100%. It should have been that. Yeah, if we could, you crystal ball it, and I could sit here and say it should have done that. Again, I wasn't there.
Yeah, of course.
But if there was long arms in the police cars, that would have been over very, very quickly.
And I think, mate, as you said, you know, you weren't there, and I'm not at all criticising. I think what the police, what the first responders did, mate, and you've summed it up. All the civilians that rendered first, they all did an amazing job under tried and testing circumstances that, you know, most of them have never seen.
Yeah.
You know, you've seen it in Afghanistan, but you were in the military. You're not expecting to go to Bondi Beach.
Oh, no
and
way.
You know, a place where most of us go to a beach for leisure and relaxation, to see terror and absolute horror. So I think, and I want to get this across, that I am absolutely in support of what they did, and I wanted to highlight a great job with I class you and many others, mate, as subject matter experts in this field. That's why I'm posing, you know, for the civilian listener, that to get you on, to get your thoughts, and not in any way am I criticising the guys and girls that were on the ground that day, because
not at all.
They did an amazing job, and hats off to them.
100%. It's a system and process failure that we got to there in the first place.
And mate, do you hope in the future that these gaps are plugged, that, you know, that these agencies, like you've been at that sharp end, mate, you've been in briefings, you've seen what they do. Do you hope that we don't see a repeat of this ever again?
Yeah, 100%. Like that, I would never hope that this was to happen. Like, you train for these events, but you never want them to happen.
Of course.
And yeah, unfortunately, the way things are looking, this isn't the first time, and it's not the last.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, we need to upskill our GDs in long arms. Unfortunately, it's a crappy world we're living in, where you've got to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how good would it be if Australia was still Australia and we could just continue to not worry about the global issues that were happening overseas and those attacks? It's happening now. So it's a wake-up call, and yeah, we need to do something about it.
And being that you're ex-military and ex-police, what advice would you give to civilians to be better prepared, better, like, if and when, which I hate saying those words, but if and when it happens again, that they can be better prepared to, you know, deal with it, whether it be, you know, do they go and do a first aid course? Do they go and do they go and learn to box, or do, like, fight? What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, that's a good one as well. So definitely the first aid course. You know, there's multiple different organisations running, you know, level 1 first aider courses. There's also courses to learn how to be, you know, to do CPR. There's a defib course as well, and I believe that there's an app on your phone that you can sign up to, and
there is.
It lets you know, it lets people know in an area that you're CPR qualified. It shows you where the defibs are, and if there's an emergency, you get a notification on your phone and you can attend. So, you know, there's that as well. For 100% upskilling, you want to be able to do first aid courses as if you're a civilian and you've got a family, because, you know, come the day when there's an emergency within your family, and, you know, it could be something like, could be but could be something like a child is choking, you know, on something, or, you know, it could be a wound, a cut on a leg or a limb, where if you had that training and expertise, just that little bit of knowledge to be able to put a tourniquet on, to do the correct movement to get to unblock that blockage in the child's throat. Like, imagine sitting there and going, wow, I'm so proud, I'm so glad that I did that first aid course, opposed to, oh, if I only just done a first aid course, I could have saved that person's life. I know which one that I would want. So
I'm the same.
Yeah, don't put your head in the sand. Don't be an ostrich. and go out and do a first aid course. Go, have, yeah. No, I think that's actually a really good idea. Yeah.
And I think too, if you want to upskill yourself and do some mixed martial arts things like that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that should be compulsory. And if it's not you, if you're not that guy or girl, then get your kids to do it. Start them early, whatever discipline it is that you want. Show them all the martial art disciplines, and whichever one that they pick, then push that. But it's a non-negotiable.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
And I agree, because as you just said, we are living in different times now. Like it is, the world is. It's on a night. I've never seen it. Like, I'm 33, mate, and I remember, when we started the podcast, 9/11. Well, this was our 9/11. This changed Australia. On the 14th of December, it changed Australia forever. And we are living in these times now that are just. I've never seen so much unrest in the world, and you have, because you've been involved in this this space for a very long time. But just do what you can to protect yourself and your family.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
First and foremost, protect yourself. Protect your family. Protect yourself.
Exactly. And mate, I think I just really wanted to bring that in to finish up the podcast and just get your thoughts, because you've been involved in that space, and I think it's still relevant to have your thoughts, and because the threat's not going to go away.
No.
It's, if anything, it's only going to get worse. And as you said, mate, it's not an isolated incident. This, unfortunately, I'm saying these words. It is inevitable that it is going to happen again.
Yep.
It's just it's just a question of when.
Yep,
So
exactly.
I think great to finish up there, mate. And mate, I'll finish with a quote that I believe sums you up, mate. And your story is one of true grit, determination, having the courage to be brave and test yourself at the elite level. And you've served your country, as I've said throughout the podcast, with honour and your state, and you've brought pride to your family. And the quote is, "Perseverance is the secret of all triumphs. It's part of Special Forces training. You, ads, are taught to come up with a solution, not to look for excuses, and without warning, you strike." I believe this quote sums you up and your story, and I want to thank you for coming on True Blue and sharing your story. It's been an absolute privilege. Thanks, ads.
Man, thanks, Ads. I love that.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. Real talk with those that pledge to keep us safe with grit, sacrifice, and determination. See you next time.